Yes. Yes. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Championship Sunday of the Hall of Heroes, sponsored by Progressive. My name is Will Scarlett, joined on the desk once again by Bob Nosta Matson. Bob, we're back on the desk. It's Championship Sunday. We started off with 12 of the best competitors in the specialist format, and we've narrowed it down to just 4. How are you feeling about today?
I'm feeling pretty excited. I feel like I have to root for the one person not playing Rogue. It's pretty wild to see in this tournament just 9 out of the 12 players bringing Rogue to the tournament, and we saw Racy. I don't think he dropped a game in group stage, so
Went
maybe
4-1.
Oh, he went 4-1. Okay.
Yeah, so unfortunately
maybe
he did drop one game, but 4-1 was good enough to get out of the round robin. And a quick recap for those of you who are just joining us for the first time today. We took these 12 players, separated them into groups A and B, and had 6 players play a round robin. So Racy and Zalae were the first person to make it out of group number 1. As you can see here, Racy going 4-1, and Zalae going 3-2. Beating out Muzzy on some tiebreakers who also went 3-2. So a little bit unfortunate for Muzzy, but Zalae ended up getting there in the end. As you can see, the rest of the group, Deathstar, Feno, and Reynad unfortunately fell a little bit short. Feno going 1-4, which of those 6, I definitely did not expect at all, but sometimes that's just the way of the road. Deathstar going 2-3 with that weird offset control hunter that he was kind of rocking. Did you have any final opinions about this group? Is this how you kind of expect it to play out, Bub?
I was pretty surprised to see Zalae go through just because I wasn't too sold about his decks, and turns out neither was he. He was in chat saying that he definitely did not bring optimalists for this tournament, but he was still able to squeeze on by. Maybe that was just through his technical play. Maybe it was just he was drawing Miscreant or, say, Edwin a little bit more than his opponents. Hard to say exactly. But RayC, as the only person with Warrior, which is, I'm pretty sure, the only deck that the stats say is favored against Rogue, not too surprised to see him make it through his group.
Yeah, and, Omni Slash coming out in full force, because if we look over on Group B, we can see the other 2 players to make it to the top 4. Firebat and RDU. It was definitely a very close call in this Group B. It was actually so close, it came down to 1 game in the final series of the round robin. RDU ended up winning against Justsaiyan, and because he won, RDU and Firebat moved on to the final 4. But if Justsaiyan won that final series, him and Orange would have moved on, because it would have been a 4-way tie, and through tiebreakers, they would have gotten through. So a lot closer than we saw in Group A, and it was honestly, up until the very end, was anybody's game.
Nah, it was always going to be this way, man. RDU and Firebat brought Wisps, and let me tell you, they looked good.
Yeah, Wisp was actually just incredible. It was overperforming, absolutely insane. Unfortunately, sometimes, it gets stuck in the hand every once in a while, but when that engine got going, it got going, and you can see here what we're going to be doing today. Racy going up against Firebat in the first semifinals, and Zalae going up against RDU in the second. Me and Bob are going to be bringing you the semifinal action, and then later in the day, Cora and Dr. J are going to be bringing you the championship in third place match. Just looking at the bracket, how it's playing out so far, Bob. RayC versus Firebat, Zalae versus RDU. Are we getting the Omni/Grand Finals, or is RayC going to take it all?
I mean, I do think that Warrior does perform pretty well against Rogue. The Rogues with the Togwaggle scheme seem to have a little bit of a better chance because they have that insane late game win condition. But you did say that you were watching Firebat prep for this matchup and run some sets. How did he do trying to overcome this Warrior?
Yeah, it was actually pretty cool how a lot of the lines, because you would think that the main strategies throughout the 3 decks would be very similar, but they couldn't be more different. It's the main deck actually had a decent amount of success because there's the obvious Chef Nomi. It just, in the main deck, it just does so much work against Warrior if you can get it online. But the other surprising win condition that Firebat found is Edwin Van Cleef. Because he's running double Wisp in the main board, there are a lot of times where he was going like Wisp with Shadow Step, Wisp, Edwin Van Cleef, make a 10-10, make a 12-12. And you would think, oh, well, Warrior just executes it or shield slams it down, but it's usually often enough to where it's early in the game, so they don't have enough armor to shield slam it. And RayC is actually only running 1 copy of Execute, which is definitely the weak point of his deck. So if you get a big Endwin online, it is very likely to stick.
Yeah, for sure. When you only play 1, you do run that risk of just having that big Edwin just absolutely blow you out. And also, there's not that many activators to even activate the 1 Execute in the early game.
Yeah, and so if I had to give it a stat line, I would say the main deck is, I don't want to say slightly, I would say it's more in lines of a 50-50. It's if you can get the big Edwin out, or if the Chef Nomi can come out early and RayC doesn't have a brawl or any sort of other answer, he can definitely squeeze out a win game 1. But I think Firebat, as the game series progresses, going to be in his favor, just because the Warrior list that he's built, he says, I don't need a big Edwin. If I can do the game plan that this deck's supposed to do, it should be almost guaranteed, were his words. He's running the High Spare and Togwaggle, Chef Nomi, Sprint package. And I think just between those 3, as long as the Warrior doesn't curve out and beat him down with some, Chill Wind Yetis, those Omega Devastators, I think Firebat might be able to take the series. But RayC's been pulling out some crazy wins with this Warrior deck, so it can go either way.
Yeah, I would still, I guess, tend to think that RayC is pretty favored here. Without the Togwaggle scheme, I think it's pretty important to just make board after board, and even slowing down the game, having that sprint and the Chef Nomi and the High Spire and Togwaggle. I just think that it's not enough threats. I think that the Chef Nomi can be pretty cleanly answered just by a brawl. And then what are you going to do? Just play Golden Monkey with High Spire and Togwaggle? What are you going to do? 2 legendaries? I'm not.
Yeah, it's definitely rough sometimes. A lot of the times the players are picking that Wondrous Wand and hoping that off the Wondrous Wand they get something like the Sprint Raiding Party Leroy or something like that. But other times you get prep backstab, and it's just feels real bad. But right here you can see RayC's main deck. There's that 1 copy of Execute, the 1 copy of Acidic Swamp Boost. So this operates almost like a mid-range deck with a lot of removal rather than your traditional control deck, especially when the correct Dr. Boom gets played online. This is the correct deck list, but just the wrong Dr. Boom. This is the old school Dr. Boom that's no longer in the format. We want the Mad Genius.
I didn't even notice that. Just sliding in there.
Right card, unfortunate. But besides that, the deck was correct. Everything else is right. And I think it's, like I said, RayC, I think, is probably one of the most experienced pilots on this list. He's been playing Control Warrior since its inception. He's got several hundred games under his belt of this, just this one iteration, if not thousands of games of Control Warrior in general. So, does it come down to, can experience overcome the veracity that, Rogue is bringing to the table right now?
Don't give me that look. I don't know big words, but
I think that
it seems to be the case that weapon destruction is just so incredibly potent. We saw Feno pull out a win just because his first 2 weapons got destroyed, but then the last Waggle pick accounted for so much damage, swinging in to get to play something like Leroy twice. And again, something like Myra's is just so good in the matchup where you just want to apply pressure as fast as possible. So then you just get to dump all your threats and then refill your hand and just try and race them as fast as possible. Because when the game goes long, if you don't have this really value-oriented win condition, I'm just not convinced they could beat Warrior that just gets to play Omega Devastator and just charging him X with Dr. Boom.
Yeah, the traditional game plan of at least Firebat's main deck is definitely mostly non-existent. It's, a lot of times, as good as Prep Raiding Party is into Dread Corsairs, RayC just has access to so much removal and weapon destruction that it can disrupt that tempo almost instantaneously with no hesitation. And looking at RayC's hand right now, I think it's definitely going to come down to a Chef Nomi or possibly a big Edwin that you see in the opening hand right now. Firebat's just a shadow step away from making a 10-10 on turn 2.
So is the idea with Chef Nomi is to just hope to hit both shadow steps with it, so then you could make 3 boards and hopefully that's enough to beat out the brawls? Because one Chef Nomi is never going to be enough.
Yeah, especially with RayC, as you can see, already having both brawls in the the top 6 cards of his deck. Unfortunately for Firebat, he only has access to the 1 copy of Shadow Step in the main board. But this is the alternate win condition I was referring to.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, this is
being able to make the Edwin big.
I believe this is going to be a 12-12 Edwin Van Cleef. RayC only has access to 1 copy of Execute and is currently not in the hand. And even if it did, he doesn't even have a way of activating. He doesn't have a single playable card, Bob. Oh my goodness, that feels awful.
We brought this up as a possibility, and turns out it is just happening. Just the Edwin in the hand. He does have the brawl for turn 5, but that does mean that he's going to go really low here. Firebat does not have lethal for next turn, and Ray is just smiling. He knows this was one of the ways that he just gets cheesed, despite being favored, in my opinion. Things like this could happen where you just jam the Edwin and then you're real sad.
Yeah, it looks like a I choose death kind of game. This is just absolutely awful. There's definitely this, but just as he's it's gonna be rough. He has one more turn. He has to hit this brawl, and Firebat has to not draw dead for the next several turns, and that's a life drinker. I think that's just lethal.
That's just lethal. But he could have, if Firebat really bricked, if he drew prep and then backstab, and you see Ray making the face. All right, we were thinking maybe with Warrior we would have a little bit longer series, but man.
No.
That was a game of Hearthstone, and Ray throwing up the arms what do I do?
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Oh my goodness. That's so I'm glad I mentioned that as the alternate win condition for the primary deck. That could have gone real differently. But that's the universe we live in. It's RayC could have probably had something like a Warpath Execute, and all of a sudden Firebat just concedes on the spot because he's out of gas and he used everything to get that Edwin out. But there are other universes where he's got all his 5 drops, he can't do anything, and he's playing like an Eternium Rover that he's desperation discovering off of Omega Assembly. And this
world champion level play right there.
This is Firebat's game plan that he had going into it. Get that big Edwin online. Get game 1 is absolutely huge because Firebat came into this thinking, I think I'm favored games 2 and 3, so I can afford to not afford, but he's losing game 1 isn't the biggest issue. But now going into games 2 and 3 already up in the series, Firebat's feeling so good right now, and you already have the Heist Baron Togwaggle in the opening hand. When he was practicing with this matchup, I think he was keeping this more often than not, just because this is the card he was looking for every single time.
Yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable. If the weapon destruction doesn't come out, that's another Shadow Step. And besides Chef Nomi being a target for those Shadow Steps, Togwaggle is another one to try and just pump out, say, those double legendaries. Or I'm still hoping that one time it will be correct to just go for the Golden Monkey. Just start slamming legendaries like you used to.
Yeah. I think back in the day when the old school Golden Monkey was around, that was more often than not correct because the legendary pool was so value oriented. But nowadays, there's just so many gimmicky legendaries that just don't do anything, or if they do, it's very mediocre at best. It's very rare that you get just a legendary after legendary that gives you just good value. So it's a lot harder to justify now, but Firebat actually tossing the high spare and Togwaggle, opting to go for a full mulligan, looking for stuff like this raiding party and the evil miscreant. I really liked holding on to it just because it's really reminiscent of the old school days where you were going up against like a control priest and you were paladin and you would just keep Tyrion Fordring in your opening hand because you're like, it's never not getting to that point in the game. So why not keep it? Because this is the card I'm going to be looking for. Do you have any take on that, Bob?
Yeah, I think that he is, as you said earlier, looking to take the game a little bit slower and looking to draw through his deck, trying to, use his health as a resource, not trying to take too much damage if he thinks that, say, just the Togwag and the Chef Nomi are enough to close out the game when he gets to it. So if you mulligan all those cards, it's much more likely you'll get Raiding Party to draw through your deck faster and Evil Miscreant, which gives you some early game board presence and removal options with the lackeys.
Those of you watching right now, if you want to be following along with what decks these players are playing with, type in !Reddit into the chat. It'll take you on over to the Reddit page where there's going to be links for all the players' deck lists that you can look at and follow along with. Right now, Firebat switched on over to his anti-warrior deck, which does primarily the main difference being the high spare and Togwaggle at the end of the curve, in addition to a sprint and 2 evil cable rats. RayC going to be staying on his primary list. That's what we've been seeing him do this entire tournament. He has, I think, yet to switch off of it just because of all the rogues that he's been playing against. And it's honestly the best equipped for the job. It's got removal, it's got Ziliax, and looking to be a little more in Racy's ballpark this time around. It's a lot slower. He's a lot more time to get his resources online and his engine going, while Firebat's just kind of slowly developing a hand through lackey generation.
I'm actually pretty surprised by this because if you were looking to play this game slower, you would say hold the Shadow Step for that value with Togwaggle or the Chef Nomi later in the game. But Firebat is just putting the preference on the tempo right now and trying to cut off a little bit of that card draw. Should also be noted that playing this list, the Wisps are now gone. So after carrying the first game, Firebat said, "Your job is done, little buddy. You can take a rest."
Yeah, take a nap. You'll go in the fourth quarter if we need you. Sit this one out. But going back to the Shadow Step comment you made, Bob, is actually fairly interesting because Firebat, at the very beginning of his practice session when I stopped in, agreed with you, saying he's just like, I'm not using these Shadow Steps. I need them for the Chef Nomi. I need them for the High Spare and Togwaggle. But then as the series progressed and he got better and better, he started using them much more aggressively as value and tempo-oriented cards rather than just trying to finish off the game. And his justification for that is because he wants RayC to use his removal very suboptimally. And so he's trying to force out these brawls, force out the shield slams, force out super collider charges. So by the time these high sparing does come down, RayC is going to be in a worse position to deal with it.
Yeah, there's always that balance of how aggressive do you be? How much things do you hold to start pumping out these late game threats? And I do agree with that sentiment that you just can't sit back entirely. You do have to force Ray to do things because if you just sit back, Rogue does not have enough removal to just not die because Ray will just start slamming threats and you will need to deal with them. And Firebat's probably feeling pretty okay to get that SA agent back in the hand, going to be able to clean up that ooze. And we see the Chef Nomi. So as soon as the Myra's is drawn, he's going to have that option to jam the Chef Nomi the turn after and Shadow Step it back to hopefully not see double brawl. Because I would imagine that's going to be the only thing Ray wants to use these brawls for.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't want to use them preemptively just because there's so many other pieces of removal that Ray has access to clear off these kind of boards, like the Warpath and the Dinomatics in tandem with the Ziliax especially. But, Chef Nomi doesn't necessarily even have to wait for the Myras. I've seen Firebat play it just as a 6/6, just as a last-ditch effort to get some pressure on the board if he's at his wit's end. But also, by switching over to the Warrior list, he still has access to the raiding parties, which we see in the hand. He also has access to Sprint, so there's a chance he can deck out just through those cards, not even necessarily with the Myras.
All right. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty reasonable. Once you play the raiding party, it thins your decks of the Pirates, then it gets much more likely that you hit something like the Sprint or the Myras, and then you can just, jam those late game threats. But, that's a pretty good pickup, just finding that Togwaggle for this turn 7.
This is another thing Firebat was discussing very heavily, is he could have played this lackey earlier in the game, but there were a lot of times where the amount of pressure provided by these lackeys were so minimal that it was just strictly better to hang on to them on the off chance that you top deck be High Spare and Togwaggle. And you see the payoff right here. You're going to get the
Yeah.
Wondrous Wand, play it next turn. Good
And
chance
I don't
that he
think you
hits something
shadow
like
step.
Oh yeah,
I think you
definitely
have to
don't.
save the shadow step for Chef
With-
Nomi, because then you force Ray in a position where he needs both brawls back to back. And
Yeah.
maybe at some point in this game, if you force just one of the brawls, then the Chef Nomi will be able to close out the game, because I can't imagine a hand that Ray would have that he'd be able to deal with a Chef Nomi board without just brawl. So that's just one of the win conditions, is Firebat forcing a brawl.
Absolutely. It's and honestly the Chef Nomi's going to be pretty quick coming out as well, just because the Wonder Swan picked up in tandem with the Rady Party. That's going to draw 6 cards.
Yeah.
And off the Wonder Swan, there's a chance that he hits a Myra's to just draw
Yeah.
the rest of his deck for free. He can hit a Sprint, draw another 4 cards for free. There's
Yeah,
so
that
many
was
good
actually-
outcomes.
This was a really good pickup, because you really wanted to play this raiding party first. Whoa.
No, I
You
think
run the
you wanna
risk
play-
of Wondrous Wanding the pirates that you want to draw
I
from
think he's still
raiding
I think
party.
he's still guaranteed to hit Pirates off the Raiding Party.
Yeah, but what happens if you hit the last waggle pick?
That is
just,
true.
That just seemed like pretty bad ordering.
But
He
I
didn't
guess
get
with
punished,
this,
so it's all good.
never punished. But I guess he couldn't afford the mana to get the evil Gable Rat out first, and also equip the
Yeah.
the pick off the Raiding
Oh
Party.
yeah. If you wanted to equip the pick, then you would have to do it this way.
Yes, and I think that's what he was prioritizing there. It's definitely hard to say. Because if you do the Raiding Party first, like you were saying, and if you weren't prioritizing the pick, it also increased your chance of hitting something like the Sprint or the Myra's off of the Wonder Swan, because it would have thinned your deck prior. So I don't know. I think Firebat's just valuing the pressure that this pick's applying, and I can't
Yeah.
say I disagree. His opponent's already down to 12 HP.
It's looking good here. In hindsight, this damage is a lot of pressure, and we know that Firebat does not have the Leroy in the hand just yet, but that is something that Ray has to be thinking about right now. And this could be, when he has to use the brawl, even though when he doesn't want to. Because once he uses one of these brawls, that's going to really open up Chef Nomi to being a very strong win condition. And that's the big reason that Ray is going for the Ziliax here. And I would have to agree. I don't think you could use the brawl playing against this list.
Yeah, it's just something you got to do. And unfortunately for Racy, he also used one of his Warpass already. He does have 2 of those in the deck, and it's just a little bit unfortunate that he didn't hit the second one. But
the sprint off the top is so good.
Ooh, boy.
Right when you're just running low on resources, that thing is there to refill the hand, and this is
Backstab
going to
as
just
well.
make him that much closer to the Myros.
Ziliax, get out of here. No more healing for you. He's going to be able to push all this damage face. And honestly, all these bounces from the pick breaking are actually pretty good. Like either South Sea Deckhand's damage, Evil Cable Rat's just another lackey. He's deciding whether to put the Goblin Lackey down first.
I sort of like hitting this turn.
I think you got to, just because Racy has access to so much weapon destruction. You're just wasting 4 damage if you're not. Between the 2 weapons projects and the other Harrison. Although I guess if you're baiting out a Harrison, your Racy has to use 5 mana for that, and you won't have that much mana to, do really anything else.
Are we going to see RayC have to shield slam a 1/1? Probably not.
Well, there's a Hacklebot. It's a pretty good taunt to be putting in the way. He doesn't know that Firebat has the sap, though. I think what could even get pulled out of Firebat's Edwin Van Cleef. Okay.
I think that's just... Does Firebat have enough damage? He
Yeah,
has
with the
5
sap.
from hand. He's going to be clearing this off. He has 4 on the board. He's 1 off. Oh, no,
Well,
that's
no,
9.
he has
That's
sap,
it.
Bob.
Yeah. But I'm saying he still has to... He has exact lethal here, right?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Now that he has the Abyss, it's 4 over.
Yeah, he's got
Man,
plenty. He's
that
good to
was
go.
a unbelievably sad showing from Ray, and Ray's
Yeah,
clapping.
after being so good in the group stages too. This is just like the Open Cup experience in a nutshell. It's like you pop off in the main part of the tournament, then you get to top 8, just instantly lose to the 8 seed. It just feels real bad. But Firebat prepped for this matchup extensively, and it shows there. He found the lines that other people weren't, and he got rewarded for it.
I was expecting a little bit of a longer series with Warrior,
A little
but
bit.
Ray flopped over. He died turn 4, and then what was that? Turn 7?
Yeah,
No,
both were
it was a
incredibly
little bit
quick.
later. But man, Ray just
It was
could
turn
not
9,
find the
yeah.
things he needed to be able to do anything there. We saw the Wisps coming hot yet again.
Yeah.
Turns out Wisp is just the best card.
S
RDU
tier.
has
It's
it
what I've been
as well.
saying. The
But
Wisp is just insane. It's great for combo
Rogue,
activators. It's great for Edwin Van Cleef. The main
Rogue
deck
is the
got the
truth.
win.
Don't you ever doubt Rogue again.
I don't think anyone was. I think people were constantly saying how good Rogue is. It's just a matter of can it overcome a warrior that's designed to beat it? The answer is a resounding yes, apparently, just because
And it
that
wasn't
was
even close.
Yeah, I got a feel for RayC just because how good a player he is. He made the deck as almost as well as you really can against that kind of list, and it just still got there. Just
Yeah, I mean, he did have
wonderful.
things like Elsiana and Brewmaster in the main deck, and that's just going to show that he did expect more Warrior Mirrors, because if you don't play those cards, you would just lose, but they are pretty dead in the other matchups. Oh, this is a best of 5? All right. This is a best of 5.
Oh, best of 5. Okay.
We knew this. And we are going
Debated, chat.
into another
We
one.
got more Hearthstone coming at you. Okay, then. RayC down 2-0 in the series. Gonna be running it back. Here comes the reverse sweep.
That was just one of those fun caster pranks. We obviously knew it was a best of 5, but
we decided that witch puns were not liked, and so we decided to go with something else, which is the huge debate.
Think about the dramatic experience of thinking that RayC is knocked out of contention of winning the tournament, but now you're seeing him in the next game, likely to probably just get dunked again.
Oh jeez, it's
a reverse sweep isn't the most ridiculous thing in the world.
It's tough to do. I mean, reverse sweeps are always tough to do, and they're always, like, no matter how good the matchup is, you know, statistically unlikely. Just because even if you're, say, like a 70% favorite, to do that 3 times in a row is kind of hard to do. And with against Firebat's anti-warrior list, where he's saying it's quote unquote almost guaranteed, it's a tall order.
As long as there's a chance, though. But yeah, that's one of the things that you saw in Conquest a lot. Even if you're targeting, say, just to beat one deck, you would need a very high win rate to beat it every single time. And that's just that same concept's gonna apply to just reverse sweeps within Specialist. Meanwhile, it's just very likely that there won't be a very one-sided matchup after game 1 in Specialist, because you get to bring in your tech versions.
All right, Firebat, Ethereal Lackey into Raiding Party, getting that combo off, drawing some pirates. Gonna get this free Dread Corsair down, and I really like the situations Firebat's putting him in that we really haven't seen.
Awful super collider position.
Okay, I was about to comment on this because I called him out for this in the practice as well. I told him, I said, "Bet you need to put that on the far right."
Yeah, actually, now the Dread Corsair is just dead here.
Yeah, it's real bad, and I'm gonna make sure he knows. I'm
Please
a little
don't bully
upset.
Firebat.
It's fine. He's still way better than me, but if I can have just one good remark, I told him.
Yeah, small plays like this always differentiate the best players in the game to the really good players.
It separates the 2014 world champs from the 2019 world champs. It's
true.
What now?
Yeah, the Super Collider is just gonna deal way more damage than it's supposed to. And RayC's still deciding if he even wants to do that, because he does have access to the coin and Warpath. That just seems a little excessive for this board, though. Maybe he's deciding just to do one Warpath, and then, like, in combination with, like, an Alkali to Pain.
Yeah, I think he was trying to
too juicy to do.
I think he was considering whether he ever wanted to weapons project here, but I'm pretty okay with holding it because it's unlikely that Firebat hits an insane target for the Swaggle pick, so you could always just save that weapons project for the next Swaggle pick.
Sure. And here comes the bounce back. Either one of these is pretty good, but hitting the Ethereal Lackey just feels so much nicer.
Yeah, there's great spells to find, whether it's Eviscerate, Cold Blood, damage in general, or, we saw Firebat going for card draw. Raiding Party and Sprint is a way to continue to cycle through this deck. And he's going to
Yeah.
go for Shadow Step, which is really strong in this matchup. We were talking
yeah.
about using it with Chef Nomi to just overload the brawls. And now if he finds a Myra's, 2 brawls is not going to be enough.
He's actually just setting up lethal, I think, right now by throwing the Eviscerate at the face right now.
Oh, because of all the Shadow
It's-
Steps with
yeah,
the
because of all the
deckhand.
shadows in the deckhand and the pick. It's right now it's 10 damage from hand right now.
Ooh, maybe Firebat positioned like that on purpose because he wanted to bait him to use the
14
Super
from hand.
Collider.
So 21. So he's looking at 19 damage right now.
Yeah, I
so he's
tend to
2
agree with
off.
that after not counting at all. I'm just going to agree.
Right. Because it's 6 from the deckhand Shadow Steps, 4 from the pick, and then 4 from the Eviscerate. And that's exactly 7.
Yep.
Yeah. So 19 right now. So 2 off. Honestly, I think he might just rip it all just because you do have the sprint to follow up and hopefully try to find this lethal. But
I mean, there's just
I
no
think
reason
just
to go
pushing
with
more
the
damage.
Shadow
Yeah,
Steps right
no
now.
reason to.
But man, that was a pretty good pickup from Racy with the gain 7 armor. Now he could maybe go for that desperation brawl, or even Ziliax off the top here is really good. Just doing that and gaining 7 HP puts you pretty far out of range from
Just
dying immediately.
Gain 10, put a taunt in the way.
Sure.
Very powerful. And this just power of Dr. Boom. Just does mad genius stuff. But Firebat still has a lot of reach behind all this. He's got the Goblin Lackey to help push through the Ziliax. He's got Witching Lackey to upgrade the Evil Miscreant. He's got a lot of reach with Sprint to get even more gas. It's looking very good right now for Firebat, despite everything going well for Racy.
Yeah, no, I agree for sure. It's just that the fact that he has 2 Shadow Steps and a Chef Nomi in hand means that he could just dump the rest of these cards, sprint, and as soon as he finds his Myras, he's just going to go for it. He's at 30 HP. Fatigue's not going to be a problem. The time to play these are not going to be a problem. And when you make 3 boards of 6/6s in a row, and just the fact that he has another Shadow Step left in deck.
Yeah, because this is the warrior list, so he does have 2 Shadow Steps naturally, as opposed to the main deck, and then he also discovered the 3rd one off the Ethereal Lackey. So here it comes. He's destroying the pick, getting the Cable Rat bounce back to his hand, so even more Lackeys coming out from Firebat. Did he mean to... I think he meant to kill the 1/1 and didn't get it in time.
Yeah, not the biggest deal in the world, but something that is a little bit costly when you take too much time. I saw someone tweet today that even though you're playing warrior doesn't mean you have to go to the rope, and we did see maybe it cost Ray a little bit there. Summoning portal.
Wait,
not convinced that does too much here.
Yeah, unfortunately things cannot get discounted below 1, which would be pretty wacky with the South Sea deckhand. Some shenanigans can go on there. But the Chef Nomi costing 5 is actually not, inconsequential. It's... You can combo it with Myras now. You don't even need the prep. So this summoning portal lives. Some wacky stuff can happen.
So it's interesting to see that Firebat's trying to cut off that card draw from Ray. I think this is just showing respect to, things like Brawl, hoping that they're not in hand just yet. And knowing that if he slows down the card draw from Racy, it's going to give him more time to cycle himself to get to that Myras to start getting these Chef Nomis online. It's just such a tall order for Ray to, one, deal with the current threats on the board and then start mounting pressure himself. Because right now, Firebat has the better late game win condition. The longer this game goes, the more it's going to favor Firebat, despite him also being the beatdown right now. That's part of the reason why he's in an incredibly favorable situation right now.
Well, Ray actually has a pretty good answer here in the name of Warpath. Warpath once is just going to clear off most of the board. He can use the Weapons Project to clear off the Life Drinker, or even just the Hero Power, and then using the Militia Commander can kill off the Summoning Portal or the Ziliax. I think he's going to have, if he wants to maintain his life as high as possible, he's going to have to use the Militia Commander to fit in the Hero Power. But if he doesn't value this 3 damage, he can also just develop the Ziliax.
Isn't it crazy that if Firebat finds the Myras off the top, he could just play the Chef Nomi next turn? He could just do it immediately.
This is very interesting from RayC. He chose not to kill the Summoning Portal, and there's a chance for it to be a pretty huge punish. He could make... Wait, he gets Leroy. That would have been... Oh, yeah, that just would have been absolutely insane because Leroy would have been down to 3. And I think the Shadow Steps and the Summoning Portal have compound interest, right? Or they add together.
Ooh, and now he's going to be able to
How
cheat
about
that thing out. Yeah, sure. And I would
You could
again
even
just
prep
go with
out
the Wondrous Wand.
Yeah, prep
and
it
just
out.
keep drawing.
Keep
If
going.
you get to the bottom of your deck, if you find that Myra's, you cannot lose when you have Chef Nomi and 3 Shadow Steps. That's 4 boards. And
wait, how big is this Edwin Van Cleef?
You just do it. I don't care. Just do it.
Do it. Firebat, you're up 2-0. If it wins the brawl, he's not going to commit the SI.
Holding it for the reload. What a noob. He thinks 14-14 is big enough when you could have made an 18-18. And this is likely to force out a brawl. And maybe the Edwin will even win, so you run that risk. And now that you're down a brawl, and all the Chef Nomi stuff is still in the hand.
Yeah, reminder, 3 Shadow Steps along with the Chef Nomi. So he's going to have to deal with 4 waves of Chef Nomi, also down a brawl. You recall Racy played against Muzzy. Muzzy got 4 Chef Nomis, and even with the perfect answer every single time, the 4 Chef Nomi was still too much. So now being down an answer, I don't think Racy is going to be able to pull it out, especially because Firebat's at 36 HP.
Honestly, this being a best of 5 ended up just being BM. Just Ray, you didn't lose 2 in a row. You're going to get to lose 3 in a row. And I'll show. Whoa! 4 Shadow Steps. I thought 2 of these were actually from Lackeys. I didn't even realize.
Yeah, it was. Remember, because the Ethereal Lackey got bounced back, he discovered another one. It's wacky right now. He could just keep bouncing Life Drinkers.
With Life Drinker?
Yeah. Buzz, right? Buzz.
The attack of the bugs. It's just an absolute swarm. RayC cannot swat these away. And that's actually pretty heads up for Firebat just to even realize that this was lethal here. Because we were both looking at, these are a lot of Chef Nomis, but Firebat was just, this is just lethal.
I think
what a fun way to finish the game.
Yeah, I don't think this is the first time I've seen Life Drinker lethals, but I've never seen the quadruple Shadow Step lethal in tandem with the dagger. Firebat feeling very confident going into this game with his warrior list, and I guess this is why. It's, oh my goodness, that was absolutely insane. A clean 3-0 from Firebat. Just sucking Ray dry, both literally and figuratively. That was awful.
Ray will have a chance to try and prove himself in that third place game, but Firebat, he's looking good, man. The Wisps, which were also brought by RDU, and the play's been strong. He did not even hesitate for a moment. He had it in mind. He was counting the lethal damage each turn, and as soon as he saw that last Shadow Step off the top, he didn't have to count that. He was waiting for it. He was considering everything. And Ray,
never even crossed his mind. He's like, I'm always getting there with the Life Drinkers. Don't you?
Ray died.
Yeah. Ray died real hard. That was rough to see. I was looking forward to a Warrior win this tournament. This tournament could have gone so many different ways. Like I said, if Justsaiyan wins that last series, all of a sudden Orange and Justsaiyan are in the top 4, and it's just a completely different tournament.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's not how it turned out. RayC falling in the top 4, and Firebat's going to be heading into the finals, where he's going to be playing against the winner of RDU and Zalae. We can do a little bit of future predictions here, Bob. Zalae, the fellow Omni/Slash player, building a very different list. It's running, the Heist Baron Togwaggle and the Evil Cable Rats in the main list, as opposed to RDU, who's also rocking those Wisps. Are the Wisps going to carry once again?
I think that RDU is quite favored deck-wise. But then again, both players can only play 2 copies of Miscreants, so you have to consider how much that sentence even means. But
I think it means a lot.
Yeah, RDU. I've liked his deck list quite a bit. And, we saw Firebat playing something pretty similar. And Zalae just doesn't have weapon destruction in his main deck. And I think that's pretty costly playing the mirror and over again. But there's still things you could do. You could play the big Edwin just like Firebat did. You could just be going first, playing an Evil Miscreant on curve. There's a lot of lines that can lead to wins despite having a worse deck for this matchup.
Sure, and we will be talking about those lines in a little bit. We're going to be taking a quick break, but when we come back, who will meet Firebat in the grand finals? Is it going to be RDU, or is it going to be his fellow teammate on Omni/Zalae? Don't go anywhere. We're going to find out in just a bit.
Yes. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Hall of Heroes Championship Sunday. We just saw Firebat take one of the cleanest 3-0s I think I've ever seen, period, in Hearthstone, not just in this tournament, over RayC's Warrior. So a little bit unfortunate for Ray, but we're going to be going into the other side of the semifinals bracket, where we have Zalae versus RDU, where while being a rogue mirror, I don't think I've seen two different lists be built so differently. It's just absolutely insane. And as you see here, RayC, we're going to be seeing again a little bit later in the lower bracket. They're going to be playing for the third place. So Zalae and RDU going to be playing for the grand finals and going to be playing again for that third place prize money. Taking a quick look at the deck list that Zalae and RDU brought, I mentioned a little bit before how differently these two are built. Bob, you mentioned it a little bit before we took the break. How do you think they're going to play out based off how they're built?
I think that RDU is pretty favored. It's hard to say how much percentages that's going to end up with. I mean, I would say at least 5 for sure. Just because dropping the green skin, having weapon destruction, having these wisps have all seemed pretty good in the mirror. And Zalae himself, we talked about it early in the tournament, that he is not super confident about the decks that he brought, but probably through some other things, whether it's just really good play, maybe just some fortunate draws, he's been able to just slide through the tournament so far.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, RDU only has access, at least in the primary list, to only the one form of weapon removal in the Bloodsail Corsair. So it's not even true weapon removal in the sense that it's guaranteed to kill off the weapon. No acidic swamp oozes actually through the entire lineup for RDU either. And so weapon destruction is actually going to, I think, favor Zalae actually. So because even though he doesn't have it in the primary list, in his secondary list, he does have 2 copies of the acidic swamp ooze. So maybe
it's actually a little bit interesting that with the best of 5, how your second and third deck are built is going to be a little bit more important because you'll have more games to actually feature them. A lot of times when it's just those best of 3s, the main deck is just going to be so important because winning 2 games in a row is a little bit harder. But now you have a little bit more wiggle room where if you do pick up that first game loss, you might have time to then win it with your secondary or tertiary deck.
Yeah, so we haven't really seen too many people play around with their secondary and tertiary decks just because a lot of the times the secondary and tertiary decks are designed to beat something like a warrior or a mage or maybe even the Nomi priest. But, we've been saying it a lot. It was just all rogue. So a lot of people just stuck to their primary list. But RDU, it's hard to say whether he's going to switch over or not because I think the primary list has the weapon destruction that you see, but in the tertiary list, you have a lot more tempo cards like the Fan of Knives, Questing Adventure, and Mind Control tech. So do you think he's going to value those over just the 1 copy of Bloodsail Corsair?
Yeah, it's hard to say exactly what else this tertiary deck would be for if not the mirror.
I think
how
and Cora
often
talked
does
about it.
Mind Control tech even come up, though? I guess Questing Adventure can get a little bit out of control with those swing turns of, say, playing free Dread Corsairs after putting a Waggle pickup. And Fan of Knives is pretty good to deal with the lackeys. Maybe he had this deck for maybe Token Druid?
Yeah, that's what me and Cora decided to pin it on. Token Druid, made a little bit of a showing at Worlds. So possibly would have been brought here, but I think it just has so many bad matchups that no one decided to bring it. As you can see here, Zalae rocking the evil cable rats in the main list, trying to get as many lackeys as possible for both tempo reasons, value reasons, and to activate that Heist Baron Togwaggle that you see at the bottom of the list. Heist Baron Togwaggle, it's really hard to pinpoint how good it's going to be in the mirror in this game 1 because sometimes I've seen it get played on turn 6 and they prep out the Wondrous Swan and it's this huge tempo swing, and other times it just kind of sits in the hand It's really slow to come out. You don't really have anything to use in tandem with it. So it's really hard to say. But like you said, I think going into game one, I got to give the advantage to RDU. I think his explosive starts are going to be just that much better. But if Zalae can stabilize and grab control of the board, I think he might be able to outvalue RDU with his excess amount of lackeys in addition to these Ziliacs and High Spare and Togwaggle.
Yeah, I would definitely say that Togwaggle is pretty inconsistent in the mirror just because throughout all of these rogue mirrors that we've seen, the player who's been able to fill the board and go wide first has usually been the one to win the game. It's really hard to just go face and outrace an entire board of 1-1s. We saw players almost do it, but never really succeeded with it in the end.
All right, game number one of the semifinals is underway. Winner going to meet Firebat in the finals for all the bragging rights and glory, and the loser we're going to be seeing a little bit later on playing against RayC for that third place prize money. Zalae on the coin. I've been getting a lot of different opinions on this, Bob. People have been saying being on the play is just strictly better, but a lot of people have been saying the coin is just so crucial that going second might also be better. What's your take on it?
Pretty much in the history of Hearthstone, almost every matchup has just been favored going first. Even the ones where it's like, oh, Miracle Rogue, you always want the coin. Even that had a higher win rate going first. So it's hard to say just because of how many combo cards Rogue now has and the importance of exactly Miscreant, that how valuable that extra card is and the more consistency of getting that combo out first. I would imagine for it to be a little bit closer. So, I mean, I would imagine that it's pretty close to 50-50 rather than the first player being favored.
And remember counterfeit coin? Now that was
adding another coin to your deck.
Yeah. And people were like, wow, this card sucks. It's just half of an innervate. And everyone else is like, wow.
Oh, okay.
This is great.
So this is part of what I was talking about, that you can have, say, this deck list that is favored for this matchup, but it's not going to guarantee that that will actually matter because sometimes you will slam down a big old 8/8 Edwin on turn 2.
I feel like we're having a little bit of deja vu from the last series right now. The main difference being that Rogue has access to cards like Sap. RDU does have one copy in the main deck, and Zalae has 2 copies. And so I think given the context of Zalae's hand, especially with the preparation that just got picked up, I don't think there was any other play, especially with you never play around a 1-up copy. And even if you did get your Edwin Sap, it wasn't going to be that big of a tempo loss. And here comes Backstab
off the top to deal with this 3/3 so cleanly.
Oh, yeah. This is just so good.
And Edwin's just going to do this, forever until they move it out of standard. It will just steal these wins because they have the coin, they have prep. And yeah, this is just what this card does. It turns games sometimes into non-games really quickly. And RDU without the sap here is going to have a really hard time to come back in this game. Even if he puts down this Dread Corsair, Zalae has the answer. He does have to be a little bit afraid because once you play this Waggle pick, you do run the risk of weapon destruction, being able to bounce this Edwin back to the hand.
Yeah, that's
and RDU actually just going to make a big Edwin himself.
Yeah. Pacific Rim strategy. I like it a lot. When your opponent makes a giant monster, make a giant monster of your own, and it forces an answer from Zalae. Zalae, fortunately, does have a taunt to put in the way, but this is actually pretty interesting. I think, despite the boards being very comparable right now, I still have to give the advantage to Zalae just because he has the initiative in this game. He's got the Edwin down first. It's on him to be able to push damage face, be the aggressor, especially with the Waggle pick and the Dread Corsair in the hand. He could push 15 damage right now, put RDU down to 7, and there's really no punish for it. He just has so much, and especially with the South Sea deckhand behind that, he could just set up lethal.
I think there's... So how low can he actually put him? He pushes 11 this turn, and then he swings. That's 15.
He can put him down
goes
to 7. Then he has 6 with the second swing and the South Sea deckhand, and then the Evil Cable Rat has a good chance of giving him the final bit of damage.
Yeah, and even if, say, he swings and this Edwin gets bounced back to his hand, he could just make a pretty big Edwin again. So the only real decision is, do you hold this pick? Because RDU's only weapon removal is Dread Corsair. So if you hold this weapon swing, you know that he cannot bounce this Edwin back to the hand. And this was what I was originally going to say. And I think it's pretty smart, but there's also some merit to just knowing that it's pretty likely that you have lethal if you just go for the swing there.
But
Because
4
you
damage,
have 2
Bob.
lackey outs, even just in hand. You have deckhand, and if you either get the Goblin Lackey to give it +1 or the whatever the 2 damage is, I don't know the name of the lackeys. There's Shoot Man, there's Rush Man.
It's Kobold Lackey deals 2 damage. There's the Witching Lackey, which upgrades. The Ethereal Lackey, which discovers a spell. The Goblin Lackey, which gives +1 in Rush. And the Faceless Lackey, which summons a 2-drop. And that makes all the decisions go out the window. Zalae taking game number 1. Yeah, it's... when you make an 8-8 Edwin, that's just how it happens. It's...
Not even Wisp can stop that big Edwin from doing what he did.
Despite the power that Wisp has brought to this tournament, it's not nothing in the face of the giant Edwin. So you mentioned Edwin. You seem to, just based off the voice that you gave, I can't imagine that you're a big fan of Edwin. Do you think Edwin is like the problem, or do you think it's a symptom of a problem, which is the fact that Rogue has access to too many things that cost 0 mana?
Oh, I mean, Edwin's not the problem. It's just he's a little bit silly because he's always just, throughout the history of Hearthstone, stole games. But the problem is just that Rogue is really, really strong right now. The fact that the only deck that has above a 50% win rate against it is Warrior. And then with those tech decisions, with those 5 cards, it's hard to say, does it even stay favored? Firebat, with those Chef Nomi Shadow Steps as a late game plan, probably would have sealed those games if he didn't just kill his opponent. So it's interesting to see if there's room to be creative and find these answers to Rogue, because that's part of what, Specialist is hoping for, is that hopefully no one deck will dominate, because if the game's in a state where one deck is popular, usually in Hearthstone, that means you could bring out another deck to try and counter it if one thing's popular enough. But Rogue's looking really strong here. And Zalae with another incredible hand, going first with the activated Miscreant on curve, and also having the Raiding Party for the refill. But Ardu has some pretty good stuff himself. He has that Miscreant that could bring out next turn. So hopefully we get to see a little bit more back and forth this game, rather than just a big Edwin hitting someone in the face and saying you're dead.
Yeah, seeing how the hands are shaping up right now, it looks like it's definitely going to be a battle of haymakers. We got, like you said, Zalae's got an activated Miscreant. Assuming he has something to backstab, which it's very likely he will. Here comes a coin Miscreant from RDU. So it's definitely both players have their game plan online.
Yeah. Fair game. They both got it.
The fairest game I've ever seen. And I'll slightly going to be favoring Zalae, I think, just from what we know. Because he's going to be able to get this Miscreant online, follow it up by whatever lackey he gets with Raiding Party. So that's going to be a huge play. But RDU has 2 Ethereal Lackeys in the hand, so he can get some pretty wacky stuff off of those as well. Also, based off the context of the hand, we can see Zalae switched over to his secondary list, which caused the 2 copies of Acidic Swampoo's, and also puts back in stuff like the Captain, he had Captain Greenskin already, but stuff like Deadly Poisons, and took out an Evil Cable Rat. So he's getting rid of the lackey generation in favor of stuff like Deadly Poison, which can help push damage and help clear off stuff like the SI agents.
RDU... And we haven't seen just yet if RDU decided to go with that deck with the Fan of Knives, or if that was just safe for Token Druid. He probably stuck with his main deck.
I think he did as well, because we've seen him play the Rogue Mirror before this tournament, and he chose not to switch over. So I can't imagine that he's just suddenly going to be switching strategies, in the top 4.
Right.
Like I said, the deck doesn't look terribly in the mirror. It does lose out on that little bit of weapon destruction, but a lot of the times the Rogue has just been able to go wide with these lackeys and able to beat down their opponent who can't really deal with them all. But stuff like Mind Control Tech and Fan of Knives solves that issue. So I gotta say, I think I still prefer the primary list, but I think it's a really close call in what's going to actually have a higher win percentage.
I was just about to say that I was pretty sure that RDU is looking for card draw here, rather whether it be Raiding Party or Sprint to go for that prep. I think there's a pretty good pickup. Zalae is going to have a lot of time to put on the pressure, though, to make it awkward for RDU to prep this Sprint out.
Yeah, just the context of the hand is just kind of awkward. You can see just playing a whiff just to get stuff out of his hand. So it looks like a prep Sprint's coming out for sure next turn. And It's hard to say just because he technically has whole control of the board, and but it's so close to losing. It's like it's 2-1-1s and a 1-2. Can you really call that control of the board?
I mean, it's definitely something. And
Yeah.
I would like to see Zalae just play this raiding party this turn. You throw out one of the lackeys. Probably the Witchy is a little bit less valuable just because the Goblin Lackey
Yeah.
will help you fight for
The,
board a little bit
yeah.
better.
The
It's
Goblin
just,
Lackey can't target itself, I believe,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
The 3/3 is just not doing that much on the board. It's not like you're even taking advantage of the healing effect of the battle cry. You know you're not under that much pressure, so just draw through your deck. It also makes your draw quality higher because you're less likely to get those pirates off the top.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely have to agree with the raiding parties. Whenever you can get the combo raiding party going, I think you just gotta rip it. Like I said, RDU, while by technicality has control of the board, it's such a flimsy hold. He's not under any pressure. They're both basically at full HP. Zalae's taken 1 damage, and that was only because he swung with the dagger just now. But RDU essentially also just taking a turn off. Prep Sprint's going to develop a lot in his hand, but it's not going onto the board. And now is going to be the turn Zalae is going to be able to seize control with this Waggle pick, double Dread Corsair. A lot's going to happen really quickly, and Zalae's got a tiny window in order to steal this game.
I still think there's a lot of game to be played here. I do think that Shadow Step was a very good pickup for RDU. Just the lackeys are incredible at fighting for board.
Yeah, getting the Miscreant back in the hand is always just a good thing. The 1/5 body is just not that great. But the Battle Cry, absolutely incredible, especially because he still has 1 Ethereal Lackey from the previous one. Man, lackeys are just good.
Oh,
The more
yeah.
lackeys, the better. I've never been in a situation where I'm like, I want less of these, please. There's just too many.
Lackeys are good when you're starting to question, well, would I play Evil Miscreant as a 1/3? Yeah. Would I play it as a 1/2? Yeah. Would I play it as a 1/1? That's
Still,
when you're starting to
yes.
question it. Because that
These
card
were 1
is
mana spells.
just
Would
so
I still
good.
play them? Maybe. Unfortunate Witchy Lackey target. I think that might be the worst 5-drop in the game. The 3/2.
Yeah. Not great. The fact that it just
yeah.
got cleanly answered with a backstab has to feel pretty bad for Zalae. I was
Zalae
joking
still has
that
1
all
Dread
the
Corsair.
4 mana drops are 3/3s, but getting a 3/2 was
Off a
quite a big
5-drop.
bummer there. Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because Dread Corsair is a 4-drop.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
even worse. And now RDU's just going to swing back. Dread Corsair of his own. But Zalae picking up that Acidic Swamp it's going to be a 50-50 once, assuming he doesn't want to swing first. But I think you definitely don't want this Miscreant getting bounced back and also being cheaper as well.
Yep,
I think
you just have to take the flip here.
Yeah,
You do
just
not want to
good.
face more lackeys because then you'll just get absolutely outvalued. And he does hit it here, which is
Nice.
going to be probably pretty important to keeping him in this game. And I think,
Fortunately, he doesn't have the follow-up to kill the Miscreant. But Life Drinker hit in the face. Zalae seizing the initiative. He's being aggressive. And he's got control of the board, so I can't fault him for it.
pretty sure Zalae is just forced to go for the aggressive plan here. He sees RDU with all these cards in hand, and the fact that he's picked up another Miscreant just means that he is not going to run out of answers anytime soon. So Zalae needs to find damage, find Myra's, Leroy some Shadow Steps, and just end the game as soon as possible. Because if this one goes long, RDU is going to have a pretty easy time with it.
Well, with the bounce effects that are happening right now with Zalae, there's potential for a lot of damage coming out. So the Life Drinker's 3. If he bounces it back, that's 6. With the pick, that's 10. South Sea deckhand is 12. He's going to come up... So he definitely needs a little more gas. But with the Evil Cable Rat, he could potentially get an Ethereal Lackey. Discover some more card draw. He could potentially get Kobold Lackey, get some more damage. Oh, there's a lot more stuff that Zalae can do, but it's going to be absolutely crucial that he gets something good these next few draws. Deadly Poison is okay. It's not the best, but he could potentially put that on his dagger after this pick dies and push that last 6 damage that he's going to need.
I think he's just at the point where he just has to do the sad play of just playing Life Drinker twice. It just pushes 6. Effectively a Leroy worth of damage. You stay at 30 HP. Doesn't feel great when you're just forfeiting playing for the board, but you have to realize what your win condition is.
Yeah, and the win condition right now is how many miscreants has already you played at this point? It's like he's on number 3 with more in the hand. He's got so
Something
many
like that.
lackeys. You're not going to win in the value game, especially because he switched over to deck number 2, so he no longer has access to stuff like Heist Bear and Togwaggle. So it's not that's not a win condition. The only win condition right now is being aggressive, and that means playing to your outs, which is the Myra's Unstable Element, the Leroy Jenkins, and potentially a Captain Greenskin in combination with this Deadly Poison. He's got to do damage. And I don't think he's going to be able to afford not to.
So I was starting to wonder if there was ever going to be a daring escape that was pretty good here, because he had a lot of options. Even, say, the backstab plus the deckhand, I think, would have been pretty reasonable. But it's pretty interesting to see that he's going to go for the Vanish to maybe develop in the same turn, potentially, to push through a couple points of damage. It just seems a little bit unlikely that your board's ever going to push through when you know that RDU has so many lackeys in the hand, which deals with the board so well. But the Vanish could just potentially buy you a turn or maybe even 2 to find something like Leroy or a Shadow Step or something.
Eerily reminiscent of like you watching a Questro game. It feels like you're just playing really cheap minions, or free minions, and you just bounce them back to your hand, get more battle cry effects. It's also going to be a really huge tempo play because look at RDU's board right now. That's a 6/6 right now. So much stuff's going to go bounce to the hand. Some of it's even going to die. All the while, Zalae's developing more stuff. Cable Rat, get a lackey. Vanish, get another lackey.
You do run into a little bit of a problem that you are bouncing a life drinker back when you are probably going for an all-out face blend. So even with the Vanish,
life drinker's going to die because it's the most recent thing to hit the board.
Oh yeah, that's actually true.
Yeah, so
then I think you definitely go for it here.
I think he's got to. It's the game plan. I don't think he can afford to wait another turn because that's a 6/6, and he can't afford to take 6. You got to put the pressure on RDU, make him play on the back foot, and then finish him off with whatever you get off the top of the deck.
So many options.
I wonder if Zalae's ever considering holding it a turn. I think you're taking too much damage. It's not like you could really stop this 6/6 from attacking. So maybe he's just trying to think about right now what he's going to do with the follow-up mana.
Also, there's a chance you're just dead. So I'm counting the damage right now. He's facing down 13. Leroy Eviscerate's going to be 23. If he had a weapon up, the South Sea Deckhand would just be lethal.
So this actually makes a lot of sense. He was just thinking about, does he want to play these lackeys before the Vanish to get more value?
I think he was just going through all the options of what lackeys he could possibly get.
Ooh, did he have... Oh, I'm not convinced he had time to pick that one.
I definitely think he would have gone for the Sinister Strike had he had a choice. But this is more bounce effects.
The Sinister Strike too.
Yeah, I think all those had a lot of merit, and I think he definitely could have used another 30, 40 seconds to decide what that was going to be. Old Lackey pushing 2 to the face.
But it seems rough for Zalae here because he cannot fight for the board reasonably, and he also does not have the cards you need to go on the face game plan. A lot of times you need that Leroy Shadow Step to try and end things out. Maybe if he gets Myra's here, he has a chance to just push that Deadly Poison face. But we could see that RDU just has 10 from hand with this Leroy Eviscerate, even more than that
Sinister
with the deckhand. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's just so much damage right now, and it's just a little bit unfortunate for Zalae. He's just going to rip it right now.
To put fear into Zalae's eyes.
Exactly. Ziliax, though, could potentially change some things. He can't bounce it back and play it again, unfortunately, but he can heal for 3 and put a taunt in the way. I think
that sprint was so good this game. Find that sprint off the lackey was exactly what RDU needed to just refill his hand. And that's part of the reason that he has had such an easy time controlling the board this game. Zalae did not really have the hand to put on a ton of pressure. We've said that usually the player who is going first, if they had that combo miscreant, that they haven't really lost yet. But this has been the first game that the player going second has been able to deal with that with ease. But I have to give a lot of credit to that sprint.
Yeah, the sprint was absolutely insane, especially in tandem with the preparation. That's just one of the OG combos that just have always been good. Preparation's just a good card. Does a lot of things really well. Comes
So
the
what
Witching
can
Lackey.
Zalae
6
get
drop.
off of this? Oh,
Auger.
Auger. Okay, that's a taunt
2/2.
and a body. Not bad.
I think he's still
Maybe,
just dead though.
Yeah, it's looking
Yeah.
rough, but there's a
Wait,
little
or
bit
is
of
he
hope.
not? Okay, hold on.
No, he's
Counting
not dead
time,
just
Bob.
yet.
3. Leroy Eviscerate, 12, 14. Yeah, he's not dead yet. Return all friendly minions. Betrayal, also kind of good. Can clear
Yeah,
off
it's
a
hard
lot
to
of the
see if
board.
that's good here without looking at the board.
There's the Hogger, there's the 2/2, and then some lackeys. So the Betrayal on the Hogger would clear out the taunt and free up 2 more damage, but it's still not enough to finish off Zalae.
RDU is about to get so many lackeys back into his hand.
Does he want them back in the hand though? Because these are all still pushing a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Looks like he's going for it. I mean, that's 5 damage every turn. Maybe he just thinks with all these battle cry effects, it's going to be able to, compensate and be able to push that damage.
Yeah.
Because Goblin Lackey, Kobold Lackey killing the Hogger. Yeah, I guess if you really want to kill the Hogger, this is what you got to do.
Man, Daring Escape is looking better and better. People, they're
Are people
not going
sleeping
to
on
start
the
main
Daring
decking.
Escape, Bob?
Nah, it's just sometimes situationally going to be the pick there. And RDU being heads up enough to pick it because the other options were somewhat reasonable, but he knew that this would lead to a pretty good clear, allow him to stay ahead. And RDU probably doesn't realize how good a position he's in here because Zalae's hand could easily be way more burst. And we could just see that Zalae does not have it right now.
Yeah, there's barely anything going on right now.
There's still like
It's-
10, but 10 is not 20.
10 is not 19.
Same thing.
Same thing. 19, 20, what's 1 damage off lethal? All right.
Forcing, I think.
All right, let's see what these lackeys can develop. Just a measly 2/3 SI is going to clear off a little bit of the board.
So is
Blaze
this what
at
a rogue
14.
matchup looks like when it doesn't end in 4 turns? It's just lackeys going back
Yeah.
and forth. I said that Zalae would
Just-
never win the board back. And
But
look
here
at
we
us
are.
now.
Well, I mean, to be fair, RDU kind of conceded the board because he bounced everything back to his hand.
Yeah.
So I guess RDU is kind of on the burn plan now. But with Leroy, Sinister Strike, he's got the Goblin Lackey. So that's 10 damage.
I'm so surprised
Head
that
cracks, 12
Zalae has
damage.
been able to find this position in the game. I was counting him pretty out of it.
I think RDU's 1 off lethal right now.
Isn't he 2 off?
With the
Leroy
head
Sinister
crack.
Strike. Yeah, that's 2
Wait,
off.
and the Goblin Lackey.
Oh, yeah, and the Goblin Lackey. You're right.
Yeah. So, wow. Huh. This is not how I expected this game to go at all.
I mean,
he got a
Zalae
lot
still
of
needs
value.
to find something. He does not have lethal next turn. And RDU
Despite
does
all-
have time to take some defensive
Destroy minion, it deals damage.
lines here. And all he had to do was just punch to set up the lethal, play the head crack, so...
Here we go. All right. Is there an out? Not anymore. The dagger's gone. So
No.
can he find 13 damage? I don't think he can. Myra's can find.
Taunts?
I don't know.
Maybe?
I don't actually. No, he already played the Ziliax.
No, the
And
Dread
so
Corsairs?
Dread Corsairs are. So he could Myra's into pick Dread Corsair.
Yeah,
And
or
that
even just
would-
Dread Corsair. So you probably
just-
play this deckhand first.
Yeah, you definitely want the extra card.
I'm pretty surprised that this game has went, though, because there's been a good amount of back and forth.
Yeah,
And
I
even
mean,
now this turn, which it looked like Zalae was pretty dead, now he just has possibilities. I don't really remember exactly if he's played Dread Corsairs these games. It's hard to differentiate the rogue mirrors in the head. They
yeah, I
start
think,
to just all
Artie
blend
played
together.
one early on that got bounced back to the hand, I believe.
Wait, so
I don't think
if
Zalae's
you're-
played any. Oh, hello. He's not Myrazing. He's going purely off lackeys, and that's going to be a pretty big punish. Unless he gets a taunt here. Okay.
I mean, if he has even just a Dread Corsair left, I think Myra's was the play.
Another
When you
2-drop.
see your opponent just head crack you like that and have 7 cards in hand, I think you
Yeah.
start to have a pretty reasonable lead
I think
that he's got
maybe
some damage. But maybe Zalae, he's just deciding if he goes for the taunt, that's not going to lead to the win. So let's take a risk. Let's set up lethal. And that's a
I
hard
feel like
position. It really
the
is.
taunt would go for, like, it's Obviously, we can't get
Yeah.
inside the player's
The,
head,
the
but I
caster
think
vision is pretty good at making the correct
really
plays.
real. Yeah, given what Zalae knows, like you said, the head crack is a pretty huge indicator that he's just trying to end the game right now. And it wasn't necessarily that you had to play around Sinister Strike; you just had to play around Eviscerate, which I'm pretty sure RDU still had both of, or at least one more of.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
there was a pretty reasonable read for Zalae there that he needed to taunt up that turn.
mhm.
But maybe we are just mindless and he played both Dread Corsairs or something. It's hard to know, man.
It was a long game that we have not really had so far. A lot of the games have been
No.
over really
There's
quickly,
been
and that, I think, was
Edwins, there's been miscreants, and there's
Mhm.
been a lot of turn 5, turn 6 lethals. And that was a little bit of a mix up. And I got to say, I was a little bit lost. I was pretty confident at a couple of points that RDU had no chances of losing. But Zalae was able to mount a couple boards that maybe could have stolen wins.
yeah, it was definitely hard to say, but RDU ties it back up 1-1 in a best of 5 series. Once again, winner going on to beat Firebat in the grand finals, and loser going to be playing RayC in the lower bracket for that 3rd place prize. And the hands are shaping up. It's very reminiscent of last game. Both players have their miscreants ready to go online. The player
No,
on the coin
Zalae
has the
doesn't
coin
have it.
rating party.
Zalae doesn't
He
have miscreant.
I said RDU has miscreant.
Oh, I thought you said both players have their miscreants ready to go.
I should say both players have their turn 3 online.
Oh,
Okay.
gotcha.
So Zalae could even wait another turn if he really wanted to, which I am a pretty big proponent of because he can prep rating party coin pick Dread Corsair, which is
Yeah.
just I'm a huge fan of that play.
Especially when you know that RDU's only weapon removal is that Bloodsteel Corsair, you can just always hold the hit to play around it. And I think I want to see RDU just use one of these preps to get this miscreant out. Think that does not hurt. It's sort of the same thing as Wisp. You don't get the
feels
1/1
bad,
body.
yeah. It feels bad, but it's miscreant at the end of the day, and it's going to give you 2 lackeys that are going to do a whole lot of good stuff for you, especially get the ethereal lackey, discover a good spell. He already has the Myras, though.
This will be very, very telling of what RDU thinks about the matchup, depending on what he does right here. So with this backstab, I guess he realizes that he could easily just play one of the lackeys next turn. And the more I think about it, the more this just makes sense. Because now if Zalae goes for the develop, you get the easy combo, you get to play one of the lackeys. And also Zalae doesn't know now that you have that powerful card coming in.
But at the same time, if your game plan is to backstab this huge tempo swing that Zalae is about to bust out, you still are kind of going to be behind on board. Especially coin pick right now is going to kill the Dread Corsair. There's going to be 2 3/3s in the way, and you're going to backstab, dagger 1 down, and then play a miscreant. It's going to be Zalae's initiative for the rest of the game, and he's also just not going for it.
Yeah, I like this play a lot. Just playing it a little bit slower, just developing without giving your opponent that opportunity for the weapon
really
destruction.
Values this coin. Very interesting. I guess you really want to play. I guess with the Captain Greenskin in the hand is what he's thinking right now, because if he didn't have the Captain Greenskin, I think he would have gone for the waggle pick play. But with the Captain Greenskin, he doesn't want to get blown out by that Dread Corsair. Or not the Dread Corsair, the Bloodsteel Corsair.
And now Zalae even has the opportunity to go for the backstab, clean up that 2/3, and then just equip the waggle pick to then play the double Dread Corsair. And that allows him, it cuts off RDU from that opportunity of destroying the weapon by removing 1 durability. So then you get guaranteed that Greenskin next turn.
Yeah, really like that. This is Captain Greenskin at his kind of peak efficiency right now. Coming down on this pick, turning it into a 5/3 weapon. Deadly Poison gets picked up. All of a sudden, just with 1 weapon, Zalae's looking at 21 damage.
So many options.
Absolutely insane. And RDU's only answer is a 1-of copy of Bloodsteel Corsair, which, again, isn't even a true answer. It just gets rid of 1 charge.
It is the case, though, that just upgrading the pick isn't the best defensive line, and we could see that RDU's hand's going to shape up to be very aggressive. Usually, Myra's is not a great card in the Rogue Mirror, but when you have such a cheap hand, it becomes pretty reasonable. You can just dump this, find the burn, go for a very short game rather than what we saw last game of all the lackeys going back and forth.
The problem with that is that we've seen that quite a bit this tournament, and it seems that the first player to just rip Myra's as a way of finding burn just doesn't get there. Zalae's still at 25 health. You're going to start taking fatigue, and they have
Well,
a pick online.
he did have the option to go
yeah.
for academic espionage.
Yeah,
He could have went prep Myra's into prep espionage, but
that's a spicy turn.
he's not in it for the whack, unfortunately. He's trying to win games here, and that means Raiding Party is a pretty good play.
Yeah,
Just
no
going to keep
memes
him
here, unfortunately.
pretty far in the lead, knowing that even if weapon destruction comes out, you get a pretty good chance to get a valuable card back.
Yeah, academic espionage in the mirror, is just so hit or miss. There are so many just absolutely bonker rogue cards, and then there's just a lot of bad stuff, and it could go one way or the other, and you do not want to be leaving your tournament life in the hands of the rogue card gods. But RDU's going to grab control of the board right here with this Dread Corsair, and Captain Greenskin going to upgrade the pick most likely, but...
Just to touch on that point a little bit, even if you are going to take a random line, if you think it's going to give yourself a better chance of the game, RDU definitely would have went for it there. So it's not just that it's random, it's just that he thinks that this will lead to better odds.
Oh, of course.
Because you'll see, back in the day, Yogg was pretty much as random as you got, and people would put their faith into it time and time again. Well, I'm convinced that Yogg is what we need to make specials fun again, because when you see all the decks over and over again, if you're seeing Yoggs, there's always some fun randomness to surprise you.
Yeah, it's very like I was saying, it's like Zoo's running Lord Rafam, and there's a lot of contention right now over whether that's good. You're playing it from behind and you still lose, and it's like, no, but it's still good, because if you're playing it from behind and it raises your win percentage by, say, 20, you go from a 10-90 to a 30-70. You still lose 70% of the time, but that's better than 90% of the time. And it's very similar to stuff like the academic espionage and the Yogg Saron, where it's like, sure, you're still probably losing when you play it, but if it increases your win percentage substantially from 15 to 25 to 30, you still got to play it. But Raiding Party, much more consistent in this lineup, especially because it's going to find that Bloodsail Corsair, which, again, is a one-of copy.
And RDU going with the decision just to go wide here, deal with that, throw the taunt in the way, knowing that Zalae represents a lot of damage with this pick. And RDU is going to be pretty sad when he sees this Captain Greenskin come down, but we can see that Zalae doesn't have much to work with. He's running out of resources pretty quickly. He is desperately hoping for a Raiding Party or a Myra's of his own to have that refill. Because yes, this does represent a lot of damage, but you just don't have the follow-up for it immediately.
Yeah, I can't... Is he going to actually... Okay, I was about to say, like, there's no way he's still valuing the coin as highly as he was in the beginning of the game. You just got to use it eventually.
You don't want to have those crypt coins being in your hand at the end of the game.
Right. Like, sure, it can activate a combo, but you're very likely to be able to afford to activate the combo with any card in your deck. And Ziliax is...
That's a pretty good pickup here.
It's solid, for sure.
And Zalae just doesn't even have a way to deal with the 3-2 body. If that eats a swing of the weapon,
and then
that thing put in a lot of work. And that's part of the reason that I think Ziliax is just super good in the mirror. It's annoying. It gives you that burst of healing that you're looking for. It's part of the reason that people sort of put life drinkers in. But man,
that's
SI Agent, what is just exactly what Zalae was looking for.
Yeah,
that was probably the best card other than Myra's.
Yeah, definitely, only rivaled by Prep Myra's into the SI. But yeah, that was exactly what Zalae was looking for. It dealt with the body. It denied the heal from RDU. It got a push damage. Fortunately for RDU, he still gets to destroy this pick, but I don't know if he necessarily is okay with bouncing one of these back to the hand. Both of them represent damage.
Yeah.
Especially
I think if Zalae did not
bounced.
find that there, that would have been just almost game losing on the spot if you were forced to swing into that Ziliax. Yeah. But now RDU is pretty low, and it gives Zalae opportunities to find his own Myras and try and find the Leroy to end the game.
Two eviscerates, Leroy, Shadow Step. Oh my god.
I think that RDU can set up lethal.
Yeah, this is actually insane. This is amazing. All right, so he has one.
So you just do this Shadow Step on the the life drinker, because
heal
with
more.
Leroy double of this in hand, there's no reason to not have access to this life gain.
Myra's! He's going to have a Myra. Oh, this is the battle of the haymakers we were looking for. RDU on his last legs with all this burn and 2 dead raiding parties. But Zalae, he could prep SI Myra's. Wait, there's no chance for lethal, right?
So many options.
Why not?
Wait, that's gonna be
Does he not have
3?
another prep?
I'm just trying to think. Is it possible if he gets Leroy prep eviscerate? Is that lethal with the fatigue? No, he's only going to take 1 fatigue. So even if it sends it all face, it's still going to be 1 off. It would have to be both. Hold on, there's an Edwin. Raiding Party's a dead card. Deadly Poison's burned. More burned. Leroy's burned.
But no taunts. Did he play both taunts this game?
Yeah, both Dread Corsairs came out in the same turn. With
Wait, but isn't he...
early on.
Okay, so RDU is going to be able to play a lot of life drinkers. Is that going to get him out of range, though? Because RDU does not have lethal right now, right?
Hold up. RDU has double abyss Leroy, which is not currently enough. That's going to only be 14 damage, 15 with the fatigue. So it's going to have to be life drinkers.
Yeah.
But even then, I don't think that's enough. 1 damage.
Zalae just going
Zalae.
runner. That was insane. The fact that if he didn't get that SI agent, he was probably just going to lose. If he didn't get that Myra's, he would have had no chance. And that's got to feel so rough for RDU. He's going to try desperately to heal up here, but we could see that Zalae has an excess of damage.
Yeah, the pick's going to push another 6 damage. Leroy, eviscerate. South, he's got everything he could possibly want. I got a feel for RDU. After that Myra's, I felt so confident he was going to take game number 3, and Zalae just pulling out a fast one at the very end there. He's even using the eviscerate to clear off the board. He's giving up on the burn plan. He's saying, you've got to kill me this turn. He's going to take 2 from the fatigue. Hoping he didn't get Leroy off the Myra's, but we can see that he does. Zalae's going to take game number 3.
And that felt pretty good, man. I'm excited to see some of these rogue games that are a little bit back and forth. And you can point to things like, Zalae hitting the S agent and the Myra's being very fortunate draws, but he put himself in position to have these as outs. Maybe if you take a worse player, they wouldn't even taken the correct plays to have those be outs. Maybe RDU would have been ahead enough that he would have had lethal that turn. And that's what Hearthstone's all about, just maximizing your percentages. And sometimes, even when you're unfavored, you'll draw like that and steal a win because of how you played.
Like you said, Zalae played to his outs. He played for the Myra's. He kept the preparation around. He kept the coin around till very late to coin out to empty his hand with that Captain Greenskin. He did a lot of things right that game, and it paid off in spades. And I can't say RDU played it poorly either. He played as good as he could have. He got his lackeys online. He played the Myra's to get a lot of gas to finish off the game. Unfortunately, Zalae was able to just get 1 step ahead of him, and that just shows the importance of being an early aggressor. Zalae had more health to work with, and it paid off in the end of the game.
These rogue mirrors are pretty interesting. Sometimes Evil Miscreant and other cards will prove their power in some games, but you'll find others that a lot of your decision making will decide who's winning these games.
Have we converted you to the rogue mirror, Bob?
I'm just still very thankful it's not the Warrior Mirror, man. And that maybe that's good that Ray didn't win. Maybe he saved us from 3-hour rounds at Vegas.
Yeah.
So maybe there's an upside there.
Not all heroes wear
the
capes.
majority of the classes end up in the final. All the rogues ends up being the people who go through. I mean, that's just going to be pretty likely when 9 players are represented with that class.
3/4 of the field brought rogue, and 3/4 of the top 4 are rogue. So, the math checks out there.
Yeah.
All right.
But the concept is a little bit concerning that if the deck cannot be countered, if you can guarantee that everybody's playing rogue and you can't achieve a decently high win rate against it, knowing that is a little bit problematic. And maybe Racy just got unlucky. Maybe that is, say, 55-60% against it. But I don't know. After Firebat switched to his secondary deck, it didn't seem too favored for the Warrior, I gotta say. The threat of those Shadow Steps with the Chef Nomi seems pretty hard to deal with. You only have 2 brawls, and those are a lot of 6/6s. So is that going to end up with us just seeing rogue mirrors like this? Maybe.
Yeah, I
What I'm
don't
excited
think,
for is another big Edwin.
overly powerful decks have just historically never been a problem in tournaments because it was
Bans.
Conquest and you could just ban it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But now that, the specialist format's the one that's being pushed currently, it's just the nature of the format. You just have to either beat it or you got to play it. And
But I
right
gotta
now,
say-
I got to lean towards playing it.
Yeah, and it was a little bit problematic back in the day because Patron Warrior used to be the best deck and the most skillful deck, and you never
Yeah.
really got to see the top players play it because
Yeah.
it would just get banned. So there is a little bit of a problem when you can just outright ban the best deck when it's this incredible skillful deck. It's hard to say whether or not Rogue is that. There are things like Miscreant and Edwin that we have seen, be very powerful in these games, but there's obviously more to it than that.
Yeah. Well, if you recall, Patron Warrior also had like one of the lowest win rates. If you just looked at the stats, at
Yeah.
the face, it had like a 35% win rate. And everyone's like, this deck is a D tier. And it's like, no, you just have a bunch of people who don't know what they're doing, diluting the stat pool, as opposed to the Rogue now, which is like, yeah, across the board, this just has insane win rates. And it doesn't really matter who's piloting it.
I remember that Osaka in that Amaz League did not drop a single game with Patron Warrior.
Oh, good old Osaka and Patron Warrior in the same sense just warms my heart. Watching him play that deck, it was just so much fun. It was just like watching a symphony happen before my eyes. Tempo Ziliax?
Yeah, Zalae is just
Yeah.
not working with much this game. I think he used all of his good luck in the last game, and now RDU has stolen it, and he's about to make one big fat Edwin. And let me actually check, does Zalae play any saps in
the
this
secondary
list? And the answer is no. So I
One of the
think
big differences.
that means RDU just makes this as big as possible. I actually don't really understand this. He's going for the Miscreant. If your opponent's not playing sap, what's the downside of making this Edwin as big as possible?
There really is none. And I think that is just...
Maybe this is just RDU just not considering that, because Zalae does play 2 saps in his main version, but
yeah,
RDU has seen the Acidic Swamp Ooze by now. He's playing the version without sap. I think this play is hard to justify.
Yeah, I was going to say, technically the players going into each game have an idea of what their opponent's queuing up as their list, but they don't know for sure. But if RDU has seen the Acidic Swamp Ooze, he knows Zalae's on the secondary list, and he knows there's no sap available. So he's going to have to deal with the Edwin the old-fashioned way.
I'm convinced. Maybe that's bias of seeing Edwin just kill people in 3 turns. If you guys were watching Firebat crush Ray's dreams, I was rooting for Ray because he was the one not rogue. But man, did he flop over. It was almost laughable.
Well, you can't really say he flopped over, because that implies RayC played incorrectly, which I don't think he did. Firebat just played disgusting Edwins.
By flop over, I mean he died in 4 turns.
Sure.
Which he did.
Which he did on turn 4.
Yeah, it's rough.
Not what we want to see. But if you guys want to be checking out all the decks that we are currently looking at, type in !Reddit into the chat. Check out all the deck lists that are posted there in that Reddit post. Follow along with us. So when we refer to the Zalae secondary list, you know exactly what we're talking about.
Well,
RDU discovering a lot of ethereal lackeys, getting some spells. Vendetta.
Zalae has Shadow Step for lethal, right?
Wait,
for next, I'm saying that the turn after this, 2-turn lethal, because he's going to Deadly Poison, he's going to play the taunt, and that's going to set his opponent to 12/2. So then he'll have...
Where's the Shadow Step coming in?
I'm saying Shadow Step as an out.
Oh, okay. I was just wait a minute.
So I'm saying he's not completely out of this game, because RDU does not have lethal on the backswing.
It's actually very surprising. You would think after making such a substantial board that would be the case, but it's going to be close. It's going.
And the fact that Zalae even has outs in this game, I think just goes to show that RDU should have went for that Edwin earlier. Because maybe if you go for that Edwin, he would not have even had that out.
He doesn't have an out. He cut the Shadow Steps in the secondary list.
Oh, that's a good point. All right, so, I take it back. RDU knowing this.
It would have.
I mean, there could have been like eviscerates or more damage here that you could have been afraid of. I still think it would have been very, very reasonable to make that Edwin earlier in the game. But the fact that we could see that Zalae has no outs means that RDU is going to have a pretty easy time finishing off this game.
Trying to think. There
Turns
was
out
potential
14 Edwins are pretty good at winning.
That is true. And here comes a weapon from another class. Blood Claw, not going to do it. Arcanite Reaper. It gives him not even a free Dread Corsair. Here comes the Discover a Spell. None of these are going to do it either.
Yeah, Zalae is sticking in this game, but he knows his fate for this one. Maybe you draw Myra's into what? You don't have saps.
You need a Lackey, Discover a Spell. So he has one copy of Rat. Well, he doesn't even have the preparation, so it would have to be Rat, Ethereal Lackey, Discover a Banish.
Okay.
And then even you would just die.
So that's just too much mana.
No, there's the Rat. See what happens. Can't get a Frost Nova. Ethereal Lackey.
You could potentially get the sap and then still proceed to die. Ooh, Cannon Barrage. I've never seen that card played.
With good reason.
Oh, look at this animation. Wait, what? I thought that card had a cool animation. I lied yesterday.
Bob, you got my hopes up. Zalae
very honorable. Are you okay? Game number 5. Are you feeling a miscreen? Are you feeling a big Edwin? Are you feeling a battle of wits?
I want haymakers. I want drama. I want action. I want tears. There's so many things I want out of this game 5, and I really want it to be drawn out lackeys. I want decisions. I don't want there to be like a 14-14 Edwin just deciding who wins in game number 5. Winner of this game's going on to beat Firebat in the finals. Loser going to be playing Racy in the lower bracket. And honestly, based off both these players' performances, I would be very happy with either of them moving on to the finals. Both of them have played absolutely fantastically. It's been a really good showing of the rogue class, not only in terms of how you pilot it, but how you can even build the deck. Game 5, I'm looking forward to.
I just want a situation that's complicated enough that I have no clue who's going to win. I just want to get it wrong.
That's your job, Bob.
Yeah, RDU's really favored here, and then Zalae is going to be favored, and it's just going to be... I just want to be lost. That's what I'm hoping for, because that's going to highlight the pro players knowing what to do in these situations. I don't want it to be easily mathed out of why this person is ahead.
All right, RDU. I can't imagine he's going to make a last-minute change over to any of his other decks. He's probably sticking with his primary list. And Zalae, he's been doing pretty well with the secondary list, but the weak side is not having that sap. RDU is going to be able to make another big Edwin with, 0 downside. So do you think that RDU is going to be more aggressive in his mulligan looking for that kind of card, or do you think it's going to be a much more fair game? And by fair, I mean, raiding party, evil miscreant fair.
I'm afraid to make predictions. I'm pretty sure every single time this tournament I've said one person's favored, they instantly
the opposite
just lost.
has happened. This is so true. Use your powers for good, not evil, Bob.
I'm just going to see how exactly what happens. And these hands are both pretty reasonable. We see both people with the miscreants working with some good stuff. Zalae having that ooze for when he needs it against the pick plus the Dread Corsairs. That's pretty important to have when you're on the coin, because a lot of times the player going first will be able to develop first. So having these tempo swings are very important trying to come back in the game.
All right, combo activated for Zalae. Miscreant is online. What kind of lackeys he's going to get? Ethereal. Yeah. So many ethereal lackeys this series.
And we haven't really seen RDU draw a Wisp yet. And this is another situation that Wisp would be pretty good. The fact that he cannot combo this miscreant is pretty sizable downside.
I mean, he's still playing with the primary list, is he not?
Yeah, he is.
Okay, so yeah, not okay.
Just the Wisp just hasn't come up
like in the deck. He just doesn't have it currently in the hand. Okay.
Yeah, he just hasn't been drawing it.
I mean, that's the being on the play can have huge advantages, and it can also have substantial consequences. And as you can see here, this is one of those times where there's substantial consequences. Zalae has miscreant online already. He has lackeys behind it. He's got a lot of stuff going on.
He has the most thinking poses than any other player. He does some wild stuff when he's just in the tank, considering every single option.
He's pulling the Doctor Strange right now. He's got the Time Stone. He's looking forward. He's seeing all 14 million futures, and he's finding all the ones where he wins. And I think there's more than just one this time around with how advantageous his position is.
I would imagine at least 50 people just heard you say Doctor Strange and instantly muted the stream and just
They're
like,
like,
oh
no.
god, please don't
Hey,
spoil.
this is a spoiler-free zone. I would
Good
never.
guy, Will Scarlet.
With
This
all the
is-
time I spent on Twitch, I got to appreciate people who haven't seen the movie yet. You got like 2 more days though. Go see it. Do yourself a favor.
I like that Zalae went for this play, holding this backstab for another turn. It's just so clean to do this deadly poison, and also this weapon baiting out that Bloodsail Corsair. You wouldn't even feel bad about it, knowing that your future picks will go unanswered.
just
So it's just
guaranteed to
forcing RDU in an awkward situation if he had that card here.
Yeah, I
And
think
still he can't activate this miscreant.
this
Are you
is
at the point where you just have to play this raiding party?
just to
doesn't
have
feel
something
great.
to play. I think you might. It's Zalae's also just ripping this deadly poison not only to get rid of the Bloodsail Corsair potentially, but also just to empty his hand. His hand's incredibly cheap right now, and he also has the prep Myras. And so if he's able to seize position on the board with this South Sea Deckhand, Acidic Swamp Ooze, and these lackeys.
Oh,
He
and
just
now
Myers,
Zalae
but
just gets the
never
green
mind.
light that the rest of his picks for the rest of the game are not going to be destroyed. That is the only weapon destruction that RDU
Mhm.
plays. So drawing this raiding party is going to allow Zalae to have that incredible turn of playing the pick, maybe a Dread Corsair, maybe charging in some deckhands. That will be a very hard play to deal with. And he can actually just do it now. He can just go prep raiding party. And I think that's exactly what he's considering is, does he want to do this now? And I think that you go for
I
it
think you do.
because RDU does not have weapon destruction.
Yeah,
And when
this
they
pick,
don't have weapon destruction and you do this play, you just win.
yeah, so a
it's
little
just so
unfortunate you didn't get
strong.
the second Dread Corsair though. But 1 is still just plenty good, especially when the pick's sticking around.
Yeah, this is
Although
a lot
maybe
of
he just-
damage. And you got to go for the backstab to respect that shadow step from RDU.
Yeah.
Really like this play from Zalae. And just go, go, go. You have a lot of pressure. You have these cheap minions to dump with a lot of damage. If you just dump your hand and then play Myra's, it's going to put you in such a favorable position. And now RDU really needed a prep to have a strong turn to maybe, say, play that Eviscerate, the Miscreen, and trying to come back on board. And it's hard to say if this sap is enough. Things are already starting to look pretty grim. So RDU is going to start having really tough decisions of how he has to come back in this game.
Yeah, thankfully the Miscreant's going
Doomsayer?
to generate some lackeys. A 1/4 isn't the worst body, but it's also not doing all. Is that also spell damage that the minion gives?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe so.
So unfortunate that there's no backstab in order to get a clean clear off of this Dread Corsair. These
Oof,
Eviscerates
this-
are going to be doing more damage now at least, but what is that in
Wow.
the face of what Zalae has? There's an Edwin Van Cleef picked up as well.
Sure.
RDU has access to 1 copy of Sap, which we see in the hand, but if RDU's wasting mana on a Sap, he's not using it on other stuff, and you can see from how the turns have panned out so far that he's really struggling to get stuff online, get those combos activated.
And I like this a lot from Zalae. Just, you do have a great face damage game plan, but with the value of the lackeys, you also have an incredible board game plan. So you
Lock
get to
the
really just
plank.
choose which way you decide is safer. And when RDU has things like Ziliax to try and disrupt that pure face game plan, I think this one leaves RDU less possibilities to come back into the game.
So
Yeah, now Zalae's in a pretty interesting position right now in order to decide what he wants to do. He could
I think it's just
Hogwaggle
walk the
Ski-
plank.
That's what I was leaning towards as well, because in this matchup, it's essentially the same thing as the Assassinate, but for cheaper. I was thinking that maybe there was an argument to be made to potentially Togwaggle Scheme, shuffle in some deckhands so your next raiding party has more targets. But I think the walk the plank is just so much tempo that you can gain that it's just the correct play.
Okay, so this is really important, what you're seeing for RDU. It's important not to just sap this Edwin, because it's very likely with the amount of lackeys in Zalae's hand that you would not be able to deal with the Edwin the second time. So that's part of the reason why I really want to see this Avis come out, and he is going to go for it, like this play a whole bunch. I've seen many rogue players sap the 6/6 Edwin the first time, and then a 12/12 Edwin comes down, and they just wonder why didn't I deal with this with damage the first time.
Yep. No punish coming out from RDU this time around. I mean the not going to get punished by Zalae by sapping it back to the hand, because look at all this 1-cost stuff in Zalae's hand. Edwin would have been absolutely huge. Now, RDU managed to grab the board back.
Only for half a second, because this will be a very strong turn from Zalae. And I like that he's taking a second to look over here what his possibilities is, because you don't want to run into a situation where you start to spend mana and then you decide, well, I shouldn't have done it that way. But he has a lot of possibilities to clean up the board, especially SI agent to clean up one of these minions, and then giving it rush to deal with this 2/4 looks like it's going to be part of his game plan this turn. It's just exactly what are you doing with the rest of your mana.
Goblin Lackey lines up really well with the SI, and then 2 mana left. Potentially just dagger up if you really wanted to. You could get the Ethereal Lackey and the other Goblin Lackey down as well. He's just going to go for the dagger up, use the South Sea Deckhand instead of the Goblin Lackeys. I think he's going to value these for just strict damage pushing face later on. You put two of those together, that's almost an abusive Sergeant.
Sure. I guess, you know, this does allow RDU to connect maybe like one more point of damage. Doubt that that's going to matter, but maybe. When RDU's hand looks like this,
speaking
what
of
else
damage,
is he going to do besides just go face? Are you at the point where you're just ripping the Leroy to the head? So if he does that, you find another Shadow Step. You rip the Eviscerate. What can you do here?
I think you got to go. It's hard to say just because the Leroy you really want to do and set it up next turn so you can get potentially like a Leroy pick, Eviscerate kind of turn going on. But if you Leroy too early, those 2/1/1s, their damage can add up.
They hurt for sure. And I agree 100% here with RDU. You got to go for the Eviscerate. And this is part of the reason. Did he have any 2-turn setups if he decided to go for the Leroy there? It's hard to count all the damage, but if he did, I think it would have been the right play to go for. But Zalae was pretty healthy, so I don't.
Yeah. He's already down one Eviscerate because he used it earlier to clear off some of the board. So his really only form of direct damage now are going to be the Life Drinkers and the Waggle Picks. The Waggle Pick can potentially set up a 2-turn lethal, you know, assuming there's no taunts in the way. Unfortunately for him, Zalae did just pick up the Dread Corsair. So that's kind of going out the window as well. But if he picks up, like, say, like a pick into a preparation, he can combo it with the sap and get past it, but this is looking pretty rough for RDU right now. He's got a whole lot of burn and not enough of it.
This is what the hands look like when one player has the raiding party and the other doesn't. Zalae just is always going to have a good time playing this value game plan, which really forces RDU to just try and burn his opponent out. And that's looks mighty difficult in the spot that he's in.
Given the Acidic Swamp Ooze rush, clearing off the board, Zalae has control of the board firmly. RDU did not switch over to his tertiary list.
Is there
no fan of knives, no mind control techs.
Nope. Prep is not going to be it.
Oh, prep.
So, man, Zalae, a player coming in this tournament who has been outspoken about him not being confident in his deck lists, has been able to just pull through every one of these series. And you got to wonder, does he understand something about the rogue matchup that other players don't?
I think a lot of it is every time I see Zalae, I am very impressed with how, I guess, disciplined he is the word I'm looking for, with his weapon swings. He is very often used the Waggle Pick very conservatively, as in he'll either equip it and not swing, or he'll equip it and swing, but not play a minion that would cause him to lose a lot of tempo.
Yeah.
As opposed to a lot of other players who we've seen all this weekend have just been kind of ripping it, going face, you know, throwing up their hands on the board and saying, you know, if you have weapon destruction, you have weapon destruction.
But yeah, this is part of the reason that RDU not including any copies of Ooze makes it pretty easily for Zalae to play around. You saw him a couple times holding his weapon durabilities so that the weapon could not just be destroyed by the Bloodsail Corsair. And that has won him at least one of the games in this series of being able to do that, knowing that his weapon won't be destroyed.
All right.
And small things like that can lead to a victory when you play multiple of these games out.
Here it is, RDU's last-ditch effort. He's pushing face with everything. He's setting up the Waggle Pick lethal. Unfortunately for him, Zalae does have taunt in the way. I think he might just have lethal on top of that when he was right picked up. Unfortunate, but it came down to the wire. This is exactly what I wanted in my game 5. I wanted back and forth. I wanted a lot of decisions. I wanted people going for the outs that they needed in order to win. We saw that coming out from RDU. Unfortunately, Zalae got off his combos just fast enough. He got off the raiding party. He got off the evil miscreants. He got control of the board. And unfortunately, it's been the tale of this entire tournament. In the rogue mirror, more often than not, control of the board beats out the burn plan 9 times out of 10.
Yep.
And we saw it there play out once again. Controlling the board with the lackeys is just game plan numero uno. And Zalae knows that. He went for it, and it paid off in spades. We're having an Omni/Grand Finals. And unfortunately, RDU is going to be dropping to the lower bracket to play RayC, playing for 3rd place.
Who is the best rogue? That is the question.
That is the
it
question.
Firebat?
And
Is it Zalae? We'll
I
find
think
out.
just, going off what you said, Zalae is very not confident in his list, and I think Firebat has it teched very good for the mirror. Just going off of that alone, I want to say Firebat has the edge, but like you said, Bob, every time we said that, it's gone the other way. I think more so important than anything else in this matchup, more important than how you built the list, more important than who's going first or second. The most important thing is just seizing control of the board and holding on to it for dear life. We've seen Firebat do it. We've seen Zalae do it. I think it's just going to come down to who can do it first.
Yeah, and cards that help you out do that. Evil Miscreant, Raiding Party,
Mm-hmm.
the weapon destructions to actually have a chance when you're behind. These things are incredibly important. And maybe that's part of the reason that Zalae was able to win that series. He did have 2 Acidic Swamp Oozes in the deck, where RDU only had that 1 Bloodsail Corsair, which we saw Zalae be able to correctly play around
every single time.
And he also didn't draw Wisp, so that's probably why he lost.
Yeah, he didn't draw the best card in his deck. That's why he lost. It's Wisp is S tier, and we see it coming out Firebat. So I think Wisp is going to have its redemption arc currently. It's in the main deck for Firebat, in addition to more weapon destruction and a lot more tempo cards. So we'll see how that pans out. Firebat versus Zalae in the grand finals. We have RDU versus RayC playing for 3rd place. Cora and Dr. J are going to be bringing you all that action in just a minute. So we're going to be taking a quick break. But when we come back, grand finals and the 3rd place prize. That's going to be it for me and Bob for this weekend. It's been a pleasure casting these games. Don't stick around. Don't go anywhere. We got more Hearthstone action coming up in just a second.
Yes. Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
All right. Thanks. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. My name is Cora Georgiou, and my favorite primary color is blue. And welcome to this iteration of the Esports Arena Hall of Heroes, sponsored by Progressive. Hey, Jace, what's your favorite primary color?
It is also blue. I just didn't think we would put that in the intro. Backstory to that real quick is I just like yelling random questions to people and seeing what their first answer is. So I asked Luke and Kathy from production, I was like, what's your favorite primary color? Go. And they both gave me, I think Luke gave me white, which I don't think is a primary color. And Kathy said blue. So good to know that somebody knows the primary colors in the production room.
Well, now that we've successfully broken that ice, it's time that we get down to business because we have our third place match coming up. It's going to be between RDU and RayC. Ray, with the only non-rogue deck in the semifinals, simultaneously obliterated by Firebat in the semifinals in our first series of the day, 3-0. I will admit, I did not get to see the whole thing, but from the way that Ray described it, it went pretty quick, and there were some very large Edwin Van Cleefs involved. So we're going to have to see, can RDU repeat that and maybe prove that rogues truly are reigning supreme, or can Ray put the warrior on the map and at least pick up a win today and secure himself that third place spot? But here you can see our second series of the day was Zalae versus RDU. Zalae managed to pick that up in a 3-2 victory. We are playing best of 5 series today, whereas over the last couple days they've been best of 3. So things are going to be a little bit longer today, maybe a little bit more of an opportunity for us to see some of these secondary and tertiary decks come out finally.
Yeah, it's actually really been interesting to see because RDU and Firebat both have brought this weird Wisp package. They were the only 2 rogues in the entire tournament to bring that package, and they both ended up making the semifinals of this tournament. So maybe there's more to that than what first meets the eye.
Like a transformer. It's more than meets the eye. Except it's just Wisp.
Autobots roll out. I don't know where we're going with this.
Yeah,
where we are going is to RDU's deck list, Cora, which does not have any Transformers in it, unfortunately, but it has Pirates, and we all love Pirates.
Well, unless you're a big Ninja stan, but for today, we're gonna be Pirate fans in this building. But it is a relatively standard tempo rogue lineup, of course, with the inclusion of Wisp and Bloodsail Corsair in the main deck. However, versus Ray, we're gonna have to see that main deck first because you have to start the series with your main deck, and then we're very likely going to see RDU go on to that secondary deck, which does have Hearthstone and Togwaggle and Chef Nomi, along with several copies of Shadow Step. Going to try to build up those big Nomi boards after Myra's turn after turn to be able to hopefully outlast the removal from the warrior. But we've seen Ray so far fall to the Nomi plan and also defeat the Nomi plan, so it's kind of an any given situation kind of thing for this control warrior build. Sometimes they get Dr. Boom Mad Genius very early and they have their brawls and they're able to outlast these wide boards of Chef Nomi tokens, and sometimes the Nomi comes down a little bit too quick because the rogue has Myra's on turn 5 and there's not much that the warrior can do about it. But do you think we're going to be seeing much of the secondary or tertiary decks from RayC, or is it just going to primarily be this main deck, which seems to be his list versus rogue?
Yeah, I think it's just going to be the main deck both times, or however many times RayC needs to play it. The main deck was designed to beat Rogue, as you can see with the Acidic Swamp Ooze inclusion. Typically, most players don't even play that. They're kind of fine with just the Double Weapons Project and the Harrison Jones, but RayC said, nope, I am never letting a Waggle pick live as long as I'm playing this deck. So you can really tell that he has geared this first deck to beat Rogue, and there would be no reason to switch it to either the secondary or tertiary, especially because the tertiary looks like it's built for the mirror and the secondaries looks like it is mostly built for the mage.
Yeah, that's what I'm figuring from just taking another look at these lists. But for RDU, primary list looks to be for the mirror, secondary looks to be for warrior, tertiary looks to be for mage with the inclusion of questing adventurers, mind control tech. Actually, with double Fan of Knives, maybe he was sort of hedging more towards thinking there might be Token Druid, even potentially in this tournament, although obviously that didn't end up happening. But we can go ahead and take another look here. The secondary deck is the one that you want to keep your eye on because that is very likely the one that RDU is going to be bringing out to go up against Ray. And we saw from Firebat playing Rogue also had Wisps in his list. His anti-warrior build was somewhat similar to RDU's. He had a sprint at the top end that RDU does not have. He had the addition of the evil cable rats to make the Hearthstone and Togwaggle a little bit more consistent. But RDU has a little bit more value generation with the Hench Clan Burglars. So the idea is the same, but the execution is going to be ever so slightly different here between the match that you saw earlier today, RayC versus Firebat, and the one that you're about to see, RayC versus RDU. So let's get right into game number 1 here, as both players, of course, have to pilot their primary decks first up. So for RayC, that is going to be his anti-rogue list of the Control Warrior, and for RDU, his anti-rogue rogue list.
It's just going to be another turn 2-12.
Ray is going to be really sick of this.
With a ready party to boot.
Prep, eviscerate, wisp, coin, Edwin. Play the entire freaking hand this turn.
Right. We might as well just go to game 2. Let's just call this a wash. Just don't even worry about this game. Let's just go to game 2.
He knows it's happening. Oh, buddy, I'm so sorry.
This is unreal. Especially with the rating party for like follow-up. It's not even like you wasted your whole hand. It's a 14-14 on turn 2 and you have follow-up. Like, it's just insane.
Oh my god.
Right, just take off your headset, leave the room, go get a drink of water, come back, and try and figure out how you're beating them game 2.
Yeah, that's the appropriate response, right?
To put on a panda head and cry. So the audience
yes,
can't
because
see your
now
tears.
the audience can't see you cry.
Exactly.
That's why it's the appropriate response. Oh,
Well,
poor guy.
As quick as we entered this game, and as long as we spent looking at the deck list, the game is also over. I mean, I guess an execute potentially could put Ray back in this, but the main list only has 1, if I believe.
Yep. And he would still need a way to activate it, which would require him playing Weapons Project and face taking 14 damage, which doesn't sound particularly fun.
I mean, he might have to, he has to go Weapons Project just to gain enough life to hopefully live another turn.
Well, he's not going to. RDU with the Waggle Pick in hand has 19 damage, and Ray is at 19 life.
What a game.
Ray could have actually avoided lethal that turn by going double Weapons Project, as he knew that RDU comboed Raiding Party and had Waggle Pick in hand. But absolutely none of that matters, because he was gonna die. So
Yeah, there was nothing stopping that game from happening.
blink and you might have missed it. Game number 1 gonna go over to RDU with a turn 2 14-14 Edwin Van Cleef, as he played every card in his hand and then still had follow-up because of the prep Raiding Party. And I know there are a lot of issues, let's say, that we have with the rogue class right now. There are a lot of very powerful cards. You can't just say it's Edwin Van Cleef when you have 2 preparations that allow you to have such a large Edwin Van Cleef on turn 2. But when you get all of those factors together in the same opening hand, rogue does disgusting things that I think need to be looked at very closely right now, because that's just not okay.
I think a lot needs to be looked at. I think, honestly, it probably is mostly just Edwin, though. I think prep is quite a problem as well, but I think the ability to just dump your hand and go all in on one strategy that can't be answered by most decks is kind of obnoxious. I think there should be like some downside to it. I don't know. It's very hard to say.
Well, we're going to get right into game number 2 here, and in this one, we're probably going to see Ray sticking with his primary deck, whereas RDU is going to be moving over to that secondary deck. And that is going to include Chef Nomi, Heist Baron Togwaggle, 2 copies of Shadow Step for the Chef Nomi. And we can see RDU already has that Myra's Unstable element in his opening hand. So if he finds the Chef Nomi, he will feel pretty comfortable to go for an early Myra's with Nomi Shadow Step as follow-up and as the win condition with this build.
Yeah, you see RayC just throwing out the Devastator there. A lot of times it gets to be too much if you kind of hold on to the Devastator. You'd rather just play it as tempo because they have to have some awkward way to answer it, especially because Waggle Pick is 4 attack. So a lot of times you never really make it to turn 10 in order to do that ability. So you'd rather just play it as a 4/5, maybe get Magnetize onto it with a Zilliax, or just have it potentially contest the board.
The very least, Ray is going to have a little bit more time, it looks like, in this game to actually play the game.
That's what you think.
That is
Then
what
you
I
see
think.
then you see a prep Myra's into a Nomi should step, and you go, well, you know, at least he got top 4.
You know what? At least you made $1,200. That's okay. This third, fourth place playoff is for the difference of only $100, so it's not, you know, terribly disappointing if you lose. But the pride points are there as well. You'd rather be third than fourth at the end of the day.
Yeah, especially repping Warrior too when there were 9 rogues. You really don't want to get Rogue to be all 3 slots. But I mean, Rogue is really powerful, and you can see with the specialist format how it highlights that.
Ooh, but Racy's setting up for a turn 7 Dr. Boom Mad Genius, and this is a really nice dynamatic turn as well. I'm still not saying it's going to be an easy road, but at the very least, he's got some of his power cards on curve as well, whereas in the last game, we saw pretty much all of RDU's power cards slammed onto the board on turn 2.
It's a weird scenario in this case because although he doesn't have the huge Edwin on the first couple of turns, he has access to High Spear and Togwaggle and Prep with a Shadow Step, so he could try and go for that value route as well. And speaking of Edwin, you know, he figured he'd show up as well.
They don't call him Ed Lose, that's for sure.
Ooh, I take the Wonder Swan. Looks like he
Usually
really
we're
wants to get to
seeing-
know me.
Usually we're seeing Wondrous Wand or Zerog's Crown. But that is not the highest value Wondrous Wand I've ever seen. Only getting the discount onto the Henge Clan Burglar. But, you know what? At least digging that much deeper into the deck, like you were saying, really wants to find that Nomi.
Yeah, I think that's why I went for the Wonder Swan. Because typically you go for like 2 legendaries, but that kind of makes it weak to Brawl as you do have kind of wide board state. Also, a lot of times I've noticed that with the legendary pool, it's actually kind of bad for Rogue because
Quite
your
bad.
increased rate is on your Rogue legendary minions, and the Rogue legendary minions are Myra Hot Spring, which is really bad. Captain Hook Tusk, which is also really bad, and then High Spear and Togwaggle, which is your best one, but it's just a 5/5.
Yeah, you also have Grald Shark, which is just a 2/2. Edwin
Oh, I
Van
forgot about
Cleef,
that
which
one.
is just a 2/2. It's just really not a very good pool of legendary minions. Sometimes you're going to luck out and hit Deathwing. Sometimes you get Ysera, but the increased percentage chance is on those really underwhelmingly statted minions. But RDU, of course, doesn't want to Shadow Step the High Spear and Togwaggle because that Shadow Step is slotted for Chef Nomi. Because he has that Myra's in hand, he just wants to wait as long as he possibly can to see if he can draw into Chef Nomi naturally, so he doesn't have to run the risk of playing Myra's and potentially overdrawing it.
Ooh, Fireball. Oh, or you can take Inner Rage. You know, RDU loves to Inner Rage the face.
Oh, stop!
I'm just,
No!
I was just stating that, you know, sometimes RDU likes to Inner Rage face.
2 Malagos is this Inner Rage is gonna do damage, right?
What if he got Malagos from the Togwaggle legendary, and then the Inner Rage deals, you know,
11 damage.
11 damage face?
Wow.
That's
So
insane.
good.
I mean, there's also Fireball, which would have dealt like way more, but
Who's the one who's giving him crap for that Zixo?
Everybody.
That's been funny to watch. I like salty Zixo.
oh, I thought the 14/14 was gonna live for a minute. I got real scared for Ray.
Hey, there are certain facts of life. Edwin
Ray
Van Cleef
winning
on turn 2 wins
brawls.
games, and Ray wins brawls. I don't think we've seen him have a bad brawl in the last 3 days. He won like several 1-in-8s on Friday. It was really impressive, actually.
Blood and plunder.
Ray's getting close to dying, Cora.
I
He's
don't
real
like to think
low.
about that. But he's in the danger zone.
Pain, speak to me.
Well, maybe not in the danger zone. He's on the highway to the danger zone right now. And he's got to be careful.
He's probably going about like 70 miles an hour, maybe 80. He might want to slow down a little bit.
If there's Leroy Jenkins then he's going to be dead. So he very much needs to play around that, which will involve either gaining some armor this turn or just getting rid of that weapon.
Yeah, Leroy Step is actually lethal as well right now. Ooh, there's the Nomi.
Oh, jeez.
Conjurer's Call. Pog. I actually don't know why that's good. I just felt like saying it.
Maybe you take it.
I mean, you can go like Chef Nomi, Shadow Step, and Conjurer's Call, but I think Demon Bolt's probably just better. Oh, there's the Leroy.
I guess with the Nomi boards, you're going to have a super discounted Demon Bolt no matter what. But you see now that RDU picked up the Chef Nomi, he's free to go for that Myra's Unstable Element and set up for Chef Nomi on the next turn. The little bit of reprieve that Ray has is that RDU did not pick up second Shadow Step off of the Myra's Unstable Element, so he's got to beat 2 boards of 6/6s from the Chef Nomi, but he doesn't have to beat a third.
Yeah, the way it's actually panned out is that it actually would have been better to try and take like Lightning Storm, because you can go Chef Nomi Lightning Storm in the same turn and clear up the majority of the board. I guess this still kind of works out the same way though. I don't know if Ray can beat 2 Nomis right now.
Well, without a single brawl, he sure can't. He can clear up... he can clear up 3 of them with Warpath. But that's still 18 damage he's taking just on board. We can see Leroy double Eviscerate in hand.
Yeah, it's quite a bit of burn, especially because you can just play Nomi again on the following turn. This tells me that Ray is really trying to find the maximum way to draw the brawls right now, because I think in Ray's mind he can win the game if he hits the one of the brawls, the second one.
Yeah, for sure. Doesn't find either yet. He's at 27, 18 on board, plus 14, plus the dagger. Ray is dead.
Yeah, there's not much Ray could really do about that. Ray went for a play that meant he drew as many cards as he could that turn while clearing up the same amount as if he did Warpath, which is a really good play from Ray's part. The only bad thing about it is you never beat Leroy Eviscerate, or maybe even Leroy double of it. Like, you never beat that hand, so you kind of just have to hope it's not there.
That is the big issue with this teched version of the Rogue deck. It can be beaten by the Warrior, but it requires the Warrior to have time to find the answers. You need to have your brawls, you need to have your Dr. Boom up so that you can get your Omega Devastators and start trading over, so you maybe don't even need to brawl away a board. Ray just didn't have the time. RDU finding the Nomi to be able to Myra's on the same exact turn was essentially exactly what he needed. And now RDU's up 2-0, so RayC is under threat of going 0-6 today against Rogues as the only control warrior in the tournament. He's supposed to be the one who is super favored against all the Rogues. And right now, Rogue is looking like it just has no counters.
Yeah, RayC was supposed to be the savior from the Rogue army, and right now he's kind of flopping. He's not doing his job. We're gonna talk to him about that.
Warriors everywhere are very angrily watching their screens right now.
I can't blame him. RayC was supposed to be the savior.
I mean, he got to this point with the best record, I believe, in our first group on Friday. So he beat Rogues along the way, quite a few of them. Just so happens that it is not working out for him today.
This game's looking a little bit better for him, though. I mean, RDU does have the tools he'll need to try and get there in the later stages of the game, but RDU hasn't had the most explosive start. But, I mean, then again, He's got Myra's, got Heisbear and Togwaggle, and has Lackey Generation.
Man, that raiding party pickup is so good. Prep raiding party, evil miscreant.
Even
Still
drew
have
the
mana
deck
left
in.
over for the lackeys. Jeez.
It's also good being able to play a lackey that turn so that you can try and curb out the Heisbear and Togwaggle.
It's not necessarily the win condition that you want to go for in this matchup. The Chef Nomi plus the Shadow Steps is going to be a lot more consistent. But the Heist Baron is just a really nice way to apply pressure in the mid game while you're waiting to find the Chef Nomi or the Myras.
Yeah, I mean, you can also find the draw, the Wondrous one, and you can draw the 0 mana cards, and then maybe you just draw Nomi as 0 mana, and then you play the Nomi. You play Myras, then you play the Nomi, then you Shadow Step it, and it's already turn like 6 or 7.
Yeah, it's so broken. Now we can see RDU just pick up the wand again, so that's going to draw him 3 cards and reduce their cost to 0. Sometimes it can be a bit of a bust. The rogue already plays a lot of cards that are 0 mana. But
sometimes
there are some
it's
really high quality
insane.
stuff.
I think probably on average it's more insane than it is bad. Not just because of the fact that like there's 0 mana cards or anything. I would say mostly just because it gets through your deck quicker. Like it draws you to Myra's quicker. It draws you to Nomi quicker. It does so much for the deck. It's insane. I mean, maybe people have been like playing the rogue wrong for the most part, taking the summon 2 legendaries. Maybe it's just always correct to take the wand. I think especially in something maybe like this matchup, if you are playing Nomi.
See, this is a big problem for Ray because he's going to be forced to brawl this, it looks like, and then he's going to have 1 less brawl for when the Nomi comes up later on. Warpath would clear this if Ray was on 10 mana. Warpath's not going to clear Nomi. But RDU had so much pressure early on this game that, again, it's just about limiting the Warriors' time, not letting them find their resources.
This is just insane. Go shield block. Draw a beast from your deck. Oh,
What?
Nomi. Nomi's a beast. He's a panda.
Technically, yes.
Oh, offered it again. There we go. No, all right, Artie, you had to have at least tried to target that face for your fans. Like you
He's
learned
learned that lesson.
No,
Never
like
again.
I really hope when he took it, he started his stat play that he was gonna try and target it face. I was really hoping.
A little bit of fan service, RDU.
Exactly.
Come on. People demand it. This is a board that RayC can clear with Warpath. The problem there being Delivery Drone is the best hero power that you can get off of Dr. Boom Mad Genius, so to have to quad Warpath this turn and not be able to Delivery Drone, that really sucks.
I feel like you kind of had to Warpath that, though, because if you don't Warpath it and you click the Delivery Drone, what are you doing this turn? Almost like saying I have to brawl now or find a good enough mech to clear the board. But now you can only fit in 3 Warpaths, and then a 7-1 just hits him in the face again.
I think that may have been too snap of a decision for Ray. Yes, Delivery Drone is incredibly high value, and you need to have a really good reason not to use that hero power when it comes up, but I think this was a really good reason.
Alright, well, ended up working out for him because he did draw the Shield Slam.
And of course, with the weapons project, that's going to break the Waggle Pick and then bounce one of the Henge Clan Burglars back to the hand as well. Kill command is damage.
Alright, you just kept shipping that like it was lethal.
He's sending it. I mean
I don't blame
he
him.
needs to empty his hand to play Myras at some point anyway, so I mean, no better time than the present, I suppose.
And then, I mean, RDU probably doesn't have that many cards in his deck, so as long as he can guarantee that the Myra's draws like 6, 7 cards, and there's only like 6, 7 left, like he's going to hit the Nomi.
He's got both Shadow Steps. Waggle picks some more additional damage. This is going to require a really, really strong Omega Assembly from Ray. He needs Omega Devastator. He needs Dynamatic. Because he needs to be able to clear one of these Nomi boards without the use of Brawl. Actually, 2 of them. There's going to be 3 boards.
I guess the next hope is to burn the Nomi somehow. There was actually a turn where it could have happened, but it looks like that's not going to be the case.
I think he... With the Waggle pick bouncing the Burglar, there was 1 card burned, but it wasn't Nomi. Leroy Eviscerate follow-up as well. Nomi double Shadow Step coming up for RDU. And Racy knows exactly what these next 3 turns are going to be. 7 6/6s, and find some way to deal with them. But that is not easy.
He has to go wide this turn and hopefully draw like a Warpath or find like a couple of Devastators somehow. There is a chance he can still deal with the Spores. It's going to be very unlikely. Next hope is just to like try and push as much damage as possible and kill him in fatigue. But the issue is RDU just got the fatigue.
There's not going to be enough time for fatigue to do work.
Not even giving Racy the chance to have any kind of board state. I don't blame him.
There's always the chance that Ray could have picked up Ziliax off Delivery Drone or Omega Assembly, and if RDU leaves up a big mech on the board, Ray could just attach that Ziliax and then push over and maybe attempt to clear a board that way. Obviously, we can see RDU has the sap in the hand, and that wouldn't even be an issue for him, but if he didn't, that's potentially a line that Ray could pursue. The Ray's hand is just not going to get him there through 2 more Nomi boards.
Yeah, he has to Devastator this, have the 4/5 on the board. Even then, you know, RDU's only taking 2 fatigue damage. I guess this is probably better, gives you more chances to draw. Also makes a wider board state, that way you can try and clear with the second Warpath.
Yep, trade over the Microbots and be able to clear up 4 of the Greasefire Elementals. Looks like RDU's hesitating a little bit because of that setup from Ray.
If I'm RDU here, I think I'm just playing the other Nomi, stepping, equipping the Waggle Pick, and going face. Like, you have Waggle Pick, Leroy Shadow Step, which should be able to end the game. You have to use the Shadow Step here, but it's fine, because you have the Waggle Pick for the Leroy bounce. And Racy's not going to have time to play weapon removal. The Ziliax is also fine, because it decreases the chances of these Microbots getting through, and a Warpath doesn't become a clear. The Ziliax is probably better. Also heals, which is important in fatigue.
So I know that Nomi Priest was the hot stuff for a minute there after Killing All Day brought it to Worlds. Rogue just does it so much faster on average. If you have that Myra's early on, man, oh man. Nomi Priest was getting Nomi by like turn 9, turn 10. Rogue can get it on or before turn 7.
Yeah, Rogue can get it earlier, but it relies on, like, what the difference between Priest and Rogue is. Priest, you will guaranteed see all of your cards. Rogue, there are chances where you could either burn a step, you could burn the Nomi, or you just don't see Myra's till it's like the bottom of the deck. You don't have necessarily the same issues with Nomi Priest. So what we've seen here is RDU's had Myra's, you know, both games he's had Nomi. If you take the Myra's out of the equation, then it's just nowhere near as strong.
double Omega Devastator here for Ray is what he can see, not bad.
What we can see is checkmate.
18 damage on board, plus the 10 from hand. That is going to be more than enough for RDU to wrap things up 3-0 here. And RayC gonna go 0-6 on the day against Rogue with the only warrior deck in the tournament. I mean, it was good enough on Friday to win him his group of 6 and get him to the semifinals. But Firebat and RDU today were just too powerful of opponents for him. If Ray had gotten a chance to go up against Zalae, Zalae's deck list was not nearly as well prepared to go up against Warrior. He does not have Chef Nomi in any of his decks. So it is a bit of a shame, honestly, that Zalae was on the other side of the bracket from Ray, because I think Ray would have very easily been able to take that matchup.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to, you know, how these players prepped for their deck lists, because I would say that traditionally the game 1 from the rogues that like Firebat and RDU brought should be typically pretty weak.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, how can you be weak when you have a turn 2 14-14 that your opponent just cannot do anything about? I mean, Ray didn't have his one of execute. He didn't even have an enabler for the execute because RDU made sure to play around the fact that he could execute it. So it was absolutely insane how much Edwin carried that game 1.
Yeah, I think RDU and Firebat both got a little bit lucky in their game 1s. And then, but that's the thing, when we're playing best of 5 instead of best of 3, they have then that many more chances, even if they do lose game number 1, to be able to bring it back with their warrior tech secondary deck, which they both had very, very similar lists with the Nomi double Shadow Step. And if you have that Myra's early on, and if you have your Nomi, it is just too good. And that deck absolutely can be inconsistent. With Rogue, you're running so many zero-cost cards that, you know, sometimes you just get a hand that doesn't do anything. You get your Nomi, but you don't have your Myras. Get your Tog, but you don't have your lackeys. It's just that we did not see that happen here today. And unfortunately, it was pretty bad for Ray, but at least we got to see a warrior in the semifinals, and it wasn't just a quad rogue fiesta. But the grand finals is going to be Rogue Mirrors. It's going to be Zalae versus Firebat. RDU is going to be taking that third place prize, $1,300, and Racy is going to have to settle for fourth place today for $1,200. But that's going to do it for our third-fourth matchup. And when we come back, we are going to be getting right into grand finals. It's going to be Firebat versus Zalae.
Yes. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Esports Arena's Hall of Heroes, sponsored by Progressive, where it's time officially for our grand finals. It's going to be Firebat versus Zalae, as they've played through the last couple of days of the specialist format, and now we are down to just our final two. Both players piloting Rogue, though both of their lineups are quite significantly different. Firebat has opted for a lineup including the card Wisp in his main deck, as well as some changes. He has a more greedy anti-warrior strategy, but that's not going to be seen here whatsoever. It looks like it's just going to be a main deck versus main deck slog fest in this grand finals.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. I actually, when we saw Firebat earlier yesterday, I was talking about how I wasn't sure how the Wisps were gonna perform. That was before I even realized that RDU had also brought that list. And it's actually crazy because I had to eat my words. Every single time Firebat was on the play, there was a Wisp accompanied by a very crucial combo card, and was probably one of the reasons he got to the majority of his victories that we saw on stream.
Yeah, I mean, when you have Wisp Miscreant on turn 3 or Wisp Raiding Party, it just looks so good. We saw RDU versus RayC on turn 2 have preparations with a Wisp and Edwin Van Cleef to have a 14-14 Edwin on turn 2. And it was absolutely insane. And that's why RDU is going to finish this tournament in 3rd place. Unfortunately, not able to take the win over Zalae. And maybe that is some foreshadowing for this series, because RDU and Firebat's lineups were pretty similar. But Zalae was able to take it very close 3-2 victory over RDU. Although when we saw Zalae initially on Friday, he was saying that he wasn't really happy with his lists. He does not think that these are the lists that he would bring if he had the time now to redo them. Whereas I think Firebat is quite happy with his. But we can go ahead and take a look at the main, secondary, and tertiary decks for Zalae. Here we have his main deck, which is going to be his primary anti-rogue deck. His secondary deck with the addition of, well, actually, let's take a look at it, because he's got High Spear and Tugwaggle in both of his lists. So what are you seeing as this secondary deck being really used for then, Jace?
Well, what I'm seeing is the secondary deck is actually card for card the exact as the primary
Yeah,
deck. So that's probably
what I'm
why.
looking
No, the secondary deck I'm pretty sure has more top end for Warrior. As we can see, the tertiary deck is going to be the one that he's going to be using for the mirror match. The main deck looks like it's trying to hedge its bets against the majority of the field. He doesn't want to necessarily go all in against Rogue, because if he didn't hit a Rogue opponent, it could potentially go bad just running like 2 3-mana 3/2s, which is like not the greatest situation to be in. So it looks like he's gone for his tertiary to beat up the Rogues, while his main deck is going for hedging its bets.
I've got the T. The secondary deck is not accurate on the graphic. Apologies for that. Secondary deck that you can see if you hit !Reddit in the chat. You can go to Reddit, find all of the lists that our players have played over the last 3 days. Zalae's secondary deck has 2 copies of Acidic Swamp Ooze, as well as a single copy of the Evil Cable Rat, and 2 copies of Life Drinker, much the same as the first list. So that one could be more of your anti-rogue build with the 2 copies of Acidic Swamp Ooze. But looking at Firebat's decks here, his main deck is going to be a little bit more of a hedge against control, it seems, but that Chef Nomi, even just with Amira's against aggro, has been quite powerful as well. And you can see those 2 copies of Wisps used as combo activators for the Evil Miscreant, the Raiding Party, the SI7 Agent, and the Edwin Van Cleef have been really, really strong over the course of the last couple days. We saw RDU with a very similar deck list as well. And it's really been working wonders.
Yeah, I think Firebat has the advantage, at least going into game number 1, because he does have the double Acidic Swamp Ooze in his primary list. But more importantly, did you just say here's the tea?
I did. I got the tea.
I don't know if I can commentate with you anymore after you saying that.
You don't want that
Please tell me you know that meme, right? Where the girl like slaps her camera. She's like, here's. You never say, I can't say it because it has a curse word in it, but it's like here's.
There are certain things that we can't get away with.
It's like she slaps the camera with her nails. She's like, here's the mother freaking tea. But you've never seen that meme.
Seen that.
I thought you've seen that meme, so I was like, oh my god, Cora's gone off the deep end. I think it's like a TikTok meme or something.
Well, that explains it, man. You spend like way too much of your time looking at high schools making memes on TikTok.
Dude, it's Tice. I do it for Tice's TikToks.
It's not Vine. I'm sorry. It's not Vine. It's not gonna be Vine. If you want Vine, go to YouTube and look up Vine compilations because TikTok ain't it, Jace.
It's actually
just
better.
not it.
It's actually better because it's still around and Vine died. So
TikTok is like freaking. It's like 16-year-olds making videos, and then I look at them and I'm like, oh my god, I'm 23. What happened to my life? But we're gonna get into game number 1 here. Firebat versus Zalae. In the specialist format, you have to pilot your primary decks first. So we are going to be seeing Zalae on his main deck. Even though he may swap to his secondary after game number 1, which does have some weapon destruction. And then Firebat, his main deck is going to be his anti-rogue. His secondary is against mage. We're not going to see that. And his tertiary is against warrior. We're not going to see that. And remember, we played best of 3s over the course of the last couple days. But today we are playing best of 5.
yeah, it's a good old-fashioned rogue mirror. I haven't seen enough of these this weekend, so it's really nice to think that they're coming back.
I live for rogue mirrors. I thrive with rogue mirrors.
I really don't.
Just kidding. If you look in my Hearthstone collection, you'll notice there's a deck that I don't have built right now, and it's rogue.
And that's probably a mistake, because you probably should have a rogue built, because rogue is arguably the best class. I think it's rogue and warrior. I think they're pretty close. I personally think warrior is better than rogue, but you can't argue with how consistent rogue is because it does have a nice toolbox.
Jace has the T too. Warrior's better than rogue. You heard it here first, folks.
I mean, that's my opinion.
Nah, I'm just playing mage and bullying all of the warriors. It's good fun. Firebat with the coin raiding party here does have the option to get some of those pirates in hand, but going into turn 3, he couldn't even play the waggle pick anyway. It just doesn't look like he has a better option, though. That's why you really want that preparation. You could prep raiding party, and then coin out the waggle pick on turn 3, immediately get that Dread Corsair down for free. So good. Zalae has the option for a prep eviscerate Edwin Van Cleef this turn, which would be a 6/6, but Firebat does have the sap in hand.
Yeah, you gotta be wary of that, because I believe Firebat opted to include at least 1 sap into his primary list because he just wanted to make sure that he had that potential answer. I don't necessarily think sap is the greatest in the mirror, and that's why I've seen a lot of these players cut it for their either secondary or tertiary or even main deck in order to try and be better against rogue. But there are those occasions where, a huge Edwin gets played and you need sap. It's one of those cards where if you have it in the right scenario, it's fantastic. If you don't have it, you're screwed. And sometimes when you do have it, you're screwed. It's a really weird tech conclusion.
You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't sometimes. But Zalae, at the very least, has to keep it in mind when he considers this turn. And he may opt for just this evil cable rat and potentially the lackey as well, because he doesn't want to get run out by that sap.
And I think he's mostly waiting to draw something like the raiding party for this prep, because going prep raiding party Edwin doesn't necessarily feel as bad because you have refill for your future turns if they do commit something like sap. Backstab, raiding party number 2. It's a whole pirate ship here.
It does get the second Dread Corsair in hand for Firebat, so he can have a really nice tempo turn on turn 4 when he plays that Waggle Pick. And Zalae's main deck does not have any weapon destruction. So Firebat is at no risk of having these Waggle Picks destroyed and having his minions bounce back to his hand when he doesn't want them to be. But Firebat also has sort of taken precautions against weapon removal with his list and does not have Captain Greenskin in the deck.
Yeah, I actually like the no Captain Greenskin version, especially for the mirror, because if you expect a lot of mirrors and you expect a lot of weapon destruction, Captain Greenskin is kind of just a dead card. A lot of times it just is a 5-mana 5/4 and it doesn't really do anything. It's also kind of expensive when you want to be playing cheaper cards. You want to be playing tempo swing cards, and Captain Greenskin doesn't really give you that versatility.
Zalae's hand to me is looking very aggressive, and I don't know if he can win the game without playing into sap at some point. Maybe it's not this turn, but I was looking at potentially Faceless Lackey, Precipice, Edwin. That would have been the strongest play he could make on board, but he's going to go for Waggle Pick, maybe even set up to just Leroy Face on the following turn and get that Shadow Step onto it guaranteed.
Yeah, that's a strong possibility, especially because he knows he could be behind here. However, Double Dread Corsair is going to say no to that. Can't even prep Eviscerate on one of them to try and do the play.
I mean, he's definitely behind. He's seen 2 Fan of Knives from Firebat, and he hasn't had anything that generates this game except for a single copy of Evil Cable Rat.
If you can actually bounce the Ooze the Togwaggle pick, you can replay it to get rid of their Togwaggle pick. I think that might be worth it, to be honest. That's actually insane. I know Zalae perked up because he saw that. He went, wait a minute.
Acidic Swamp Ooze is like, look, man, I know you don't play me in your deck, but I thought maybe you could use me right now.
It might be a little bit too ambitious to go for it.
Zalae's still like, nope, don't need you.
It's gonna be a big Edwin though, that's for sure.
Whew. Mana Wraith, putting a little bit of a wrench in the plans, but you can still get that Edwin down.
Actually, the Mana Wraith made it more mana efficient.
You're not
because he
blowing
didn't. Yeah, exactly. It also makes it really awkward for Firebat because he can't go sap 3-drop now because the 3-drops are 4-drops. So where traditionally he'd be able to go like sap the Edwin, play a SI7 agent on the 2/2 or 3/2, and then swing into the 3/3. This actually makes it insanely awkward for him. I think it actually was one of the best 2-drops he could have gotten there.
And of course, you put that Faceless Lackey in the middle because you can get Direwolf Alpha off of it, so you want to flank it by minions if you can.
Can't even like deckhand into it either.
That's really awkward. Doesn't have the mana to dagger up and play the deckhand.
Mana Wraith is actually insane.
I mean, this is going to guarantee consistent damage for Zalae. I still don't know that it's going to be enough, especially since Firebat has that Life Drinker in hand. But if Zalae can find a raiding party or Myra's Unstable Element, he will absolutely have needed this additional damage. And there's the raiding party.
Curious if you're Zalae here, if you just go for the Leroy, you can trade off one of the 1/1s. Value pump the maybe even the 3/2. That way they can't necessarily dagger into the 2/1 to start the turn,
I wonder.
and then just push all that damage face. And the only other alternative is just like playing a 3/3 and hero powering, which I think that's probably fine as well.
Zalae's deck does not have Shadow Steps in it, so the only way this Leroy is going to be bounced back is through the Waggle Pick, but with the Raiding Party, he can guarantee find a Waggle Pick. Firebat's deck also does not have weapon removal. I lied. His tertiary deck does not. His main deck does actually have 2 Acidic Swamp Oozes. Sorry, our graphic is backwards.
Yeah, on the Reddit post, it's the Firebat's main deck is the third
Is
one
on the right,
because
yeah.
it says main. Yeah.
Alright, so no guarantees that Zalae actually gets the intended activation off of the Waggle Pick. Because duh, Firebat has Ooze in hand.
The best part about holding onto the Leroy right now is there is no more Dread Corsairs because Firebat played both of them in the same turn, I believe. So that there's no real taunt outside of maybe Myra. I'm sorry, maybe Zalae, but I don't think Firebat has Zalae in his main deck or any of the lists. I could be wrong though.
No, he does not have Ziliax in any of his lists. Whereas Zalae has Ziliax in his primary and his secondary. So both of the decks that he's built with the intent of beating Rogue.
I think Zalae here, you just keep playing for board. Just keep playing minions. Like, you'll be able to get the Raiding Party comboed with almost anything you draw next turn anyways. This might be the last time you're ever going to play a 3/3 and a 4/4 that can potentially hit him in the face. But looks like Zalae disagrees. He wants to go for drawing right now.
This, to me, seems like Zalae wants to play this Waggle Pick next turn and be able to set up for Leroy to deal lethal damage in 2, ideally. He picks up an Eviscerate. Because right now, with Waggle Pick swinging twice in the Leroy, he's at, what, 14? Obviously, that Waggle Pick's not going to swing twice, but he's got a couple draws off the top to be able to find the damage.
One good thing going for Firebat here is he does have that Acidic Swamp Ooze held for this Waggle Pick. And then he's going to have access to Life Drinker for a little bit of life gain. It's not much, but it could be enough to put him over the edge.
I wonder. So many options.
Firebat taking his time here. Pulling a Zalae, one could say.
Zalae loves to take his sweet time.
He's
That's
a very
for sure.
thoughtful player. But hey, he keeps finding himself in, finals of tournaments, so it's working for him. High ladder finishes all last year.
So I wonder how much Zalae is going to differ from this Waggle Pick plan. Especially, I didn't like the plan last turn because imagine if he just had a 4/4 here. He would just go, he would not have necessarily like the deckhand or a lot of those cards, but he'd just be able to play out whatever he drew. Go ahead and then Raiding Party. Then he would be able to push 7, and Firebat would have maybe had to make a different play than just playing out this board like this.
I think Zalae's going to ship this all face. He sees an opportunity to push damage. Firebat left up the Corsair. And now Zalae is going to potentially be able to close things out just with Leroy next turn if Firebat doesn't have the Ooze for the Waggle Pick. Even if he does, Zalae could... this could potentially bounce back the deckhand, in which case Zalae has enough mana for Leroy Dagger deckhand for the 8.
Zalae right now has lethal through any kind of healing or taunt because he just goes Leroy and gives it Goblin and then Hero Powers, and that's exactly 8.
Yeah. That did bounce back the deckhand anyway. So unless Firebat has second Life Drinker here, that's pretty much the only way he wouldn't be dead next turn. Because we've seen both of the Dread Corsairs already.
I'm actually I guess never mind. I was gonna say I'm surprised he didn't trade first, but he actually wanted to increase the odds of not getting the deckhand back. I think the deckhand was the worst case scenario for him. He'd rather give them the value or the taunt minion back rather than, you know, that extra burst, especially because that's what Zalae's plan is right now.
Yeah, I mean, the second Firebat sees Zalae pushing face instead of trading. He knows that Zalae is trying to end this game on the next turn, and giving him additional damage is not going to help Firebat survive.
This guy's a toast.
Firebat is setting up his best opportunity for a counter lethal on the next
He drew
turn.
lethal.
Oh my gosh, but Zalae's got it here. So Zalae is going to wrap up game number 1, going to a 1-0 lead over Firebat. Remember, we are playing best of 5 here for the semifinals and finals today. This is the grand final, of course. So we are going to be playing first player to 3 wins, which means Firebat has plenty of time to be able to get his footing and to be able to come back from this. But again, looking at the deck lists that each player has brought, Firebat is going to be sticking on his main deck. We're not going to see him swapping to his secondary or tertiary because they were intended to counter Mage and Warrior specifically. Whereas Zalae very possibly could be swapping to his secondary list, which does have weapon removal, whereas his primary list does not.
Yeah, Zalae's gonna... It's actually impressive that Zalae got that first one, because he didn't have weapon removal or had that, like, weird little wisp engine that allows him to kind of combo enable quicker. So it's really important for Zalae that he got that first one. Just because, like, whenever you win the first one, especially if your deck isn't built to beat necessarily the mirror, it is a huge advantage swing.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, so much of these matchups are just... It's tempo rogue, it's a tempo-based matchup. Whoever can get ahead sometimes just is so far ahead that their opponent can't keep up. But obviously that wasn't a game that was about a big Edwin very early on that your opponent couldn't answer. If Firebat hadn't had the sap, that game would have been over much quicker. However, both of these hands now are not what these guys are looking for. They've got the small stuff, but they need to find the stuff to combo with it. Evil Miscreant Raiding Party. Wisp does not look good on its own.
No, that's what I was a little concerned with the Wisp engine is we've seen it be very strong, but we've also seen it just kind of whiff. I mean, they don't call it whiff for nothing. No, I'm just kidding. That was a really bad pun. Don't at me. Don't listen to me. Corey, you can solo cast now. I'm gone.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Hi guys, how's it going? My name's Cora, and I'll be casting this tournament for you. And here we have a rogue mirror, and Zalae has the evil cable rat, which he is very likely going to play this turn, with the intention of picking up a lackey that hopefully can bail him out of this lackluster hand.
Great analysis, Cora. Great analysis.
Thank you, Jace. Your encouragement is very much appreciated. But also, I got this.
Oh, you okay? You literally want me to leave? I will leave this
I'm
call
a
right
freaking
now.
rock star. Get out, Jace. Dang right.
The worst part about this, or the funniest part about this, is even if I leave the call, my audio is still going live because it's through 2 different places.
It's just that I can't hear you.
Exactly.
Would you redagger this turn, or would you play the cable rat? If you redagger this turn, you're setting up for the deadly poison and the dread corsair next turn.
I would redagger this turn. Not only to set up for that deadly poison play, but also because if you play the evil cable rat now, you essentially give Firebat a free kill with his dagger. Whereas if you try and time it on a turn that Firebat wants to play Waggle's pick, it makes it a little bit more awkward to clear.
Fair enough. Firebat's hand is just not doing him any favors. We've said, obviously, when Rogue has the incredible combos, it's insane. It has these cards that are really low value, really bad individually, but because they enable Raiding Party and Evil Miscreant to be so powerful, then Rogue doesn't have to sacrifice resources for those that value overall. But when you just have Wisp and Preparation and Backstab and nothing to use them alongside, you end up with hands that really don't do much.
So now here's that situation I was talking about earlier where Zalae opted to play the Cable Rat into a turn where he knew it would be really awkward for Firebat to play Waggle Pick. A lot of times when you're playing either mirror matches or you're playing against specific matchups, you want to try and make specific turns as awkward for your opponent as possible. As we could see here, Zalae tried to make Firebat's turn 4 play awkward because, since Zalae is playing the same exact deck and he has experience on it, he knows what Firebat's plan is. However, Firebat's plan now is going to be, just shipping this Waggles Pick face, playing a Leroy next turn, hitting in the face, and then hoping there's no taunt to stop him. Because if there is no taunt to stop him, then Firebat could easily just steal this game from Zalae, which it looks like it's going to be Zalae's game right now based off hands.
I mean, Firebat's hand gave him a Leroy, gave him a Waggle Pick, and it gave him a dream. And that dream is that Zalae has no taunt and that Firebat top decks and Eviscerate our second Waggle Pick. But man, that is just so unlikely to happen.
All Firebat needs is like an Eviscerate off the top.
Yeah, but he
Go
needs for
prep
Zalae to
Eviscerate.
not have Ooze here or to not have Dread Corsair.
I mean, he's got the Dread Corsair. And he can, if he draws like Eviscerate the Dread Corsair with the prep and keep going on his curve plan and actually
True.
kind of set up lethal in a sense. But we can see Zalae does have the taunt.
And I mean, we're assuming that Zalae swapped to his secondary deck that does have weapon removal. There is, I suppose, a chance that he stayed with the primary and doesn't actually have oozes. But I would think if you're running a secondary deck where the only real influential difference is that you have 2 acidic swamp oozes, you're probably wanting to use that deck against Rogue.
Yeah, I definitely think Zalae switched to that one. It's just, we haven't necessarily seen the oozes yet. Here is the crazy thing. So Zalae didn't opt to play the Dread Corsair because he wants to make sure that if something gets bounced, it's going to be this 1/1. But because he didn't play the Dread Corsair this turn, it actually gave Firebat just quite a bit of damage. And now all Firebat really needs is to try and piece together just a little bit more, and he can actually get there this game.
Yeah, Zalae's looking a little nervous now.
I mean, Zalae has to weather out the storm for at least one more turn, because I believe he can set up 2 turn out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the Deadly Poison. I really like that prep on that. He really needs to set up 2 turns so he doesn't die to some kind of shenanigans. He could potentially die to prep Eviscerate with the Leroy, but the odds of that are so slim.
This is just 14 damage direct from weapon swings over 2 turns with the Eviscerate in hand to back it up. Yeah, Firebat, close. It was close considering the absolutely awful hand that he was dealt. But Zalae is going to take game number 2. He's going up to 2-0 here. And we could potentially be seeing our 3rd sweep of the day. Zalae's match versus RDU, he won 3 games to 2. It was very close. But things are looking really, really good for him here. And that would be the 2nd time, actually, today that he's beaten this rogue list that has Wisps, whereas his does not.
Yeah, and it's been pretty commanding so far. At least with RDU is kind of back and forth for the most part. I believe the series went to 1-1, then 2-2. Right now, Zalae is just up 2-0, and he is trucking. He is not stopping. And we can see, Firebat even being on the coin with the Wisp, he hasn't really had the availability to do these insane combos. And typically the Wisps are, meant for those combos. What we saw in game 2, Wisp deckhand prep, that's not really what you want to have in Rogue.
No, so much so that Firebat, even with the raiding party in the opening hand, is just going to go ahead and ditch that Wisp because he has the coin already. Doesn't necessarily need another activator and would rather dig for the Miscreant in the prep.
Job done.
Zalae's got the good stuff, but he doesn't have the stuff to make the good stuff really, really good. He's got to find backstab, got to find preparation. Not being on the coin does really hurt the rogue, especially when you're not playing a rogue deck that is very much play a 1-drop on turn 1, dagger up on turn 2, play a 3-drop on turn 3, hit your opponent in the face. With odd rogue, not being on the coin was fine because you had initiative. You got to play your Firefly before your opponent. Here, coin is going to be very important.
Yeah, coin's pretty important. What also was important is Zalae top decking that prep. You can see the smile on his face after he drew it, because this turn is absolutely insane. Whenever you can go prep, draw 3, and then draw 2 and have a 1/5 on board, like that is actually just nuts.
Picks up some pretty good lackeys as well. Faceless for board. Wide boards are notoriously difficult for the rogue to deal with, especially since neither of these players are running Phantom Knives. And the Kobold Lackey for some decent removal. Backing up that Evil Miscreant, which has a bad attack stat, but can take a couple hits.
Another important thing with this deck is dagger management. So a lot of times it comes down to making sure that you swing with the daggers appropriately. So for instance, he saw Zalae there swing with the dagger because he wasn't sure if he was going to play Waggle Pick this turn or not. There is a possibility that he doesn't play it on this turn, but he wants to make sure that he had swung with that dagger so that if he does play it, he doesn't miss out on that 1 damage, which could make the difference in this game.
It really just takes experience to know when, you can see 3 turns ahead. Do I have to swing now? Do I have to hold it because I'm not going to have the time to re-dagger over the next couple of turns? Get enough reps in with Rogue and you start to get a good feel for it.
Lore Walker Cho. What a guy.
Really doesn't make you want to play preparation now, does it?
No, why don't we just go prep Myras? Just give them both prep and Myras and say, you know what? Let's go straight to fatigue. Let's
make this
let's
fair
cut
game.
Around right now. Let's make this a fair game. I go through my deck, you go through your deck. Let's see who's better.
That Ziliax is definitely one advantage that Zalae has over Firebat. Firebat's not playing Ziliax. Zalae has both the life drinkers and the Ziliax, so it's a little bit of additional life gain, a little bit of additional minion removal from hand. We'll see how influential it is this game.
Low Walker Show has actually been insane because Firebat would love to just backstab these minions just to get them off the board or eviscerate. Just to kind of deal with the board state. However, he can't do that because he just gives them straight back to Zalae, and all of his work is basically for nothing at that point.
You don't want to eviscerate the Lore Walker Cho because then you give your opponent an eviscerate and you lose yours. You don't want to run your Waggle Pick into the Cho because then Faceless Lackey essentially soaked up 4 damage, and that's absurd. It's not a threat, but it's absolutely a threat. And it's making Firebat's turns a lot more difficult.
He's looking so good for Zalae right now. He has board. He has Firebat in an awkward position. He's got the Myras. He's got the Ziliax. Like, he's got the tools he needs to win this game. It's looking like Zalae might just take this 3-0.
Oh, man. That would be a bit of an upset. I mean, obviously, Firebat and Zalae both being on Omni Slash. These guys, they work together, I'm sure. They're good friends. But we got a lot of Firebat fans in the chat. He's the 2014 world champion.
Then again, I raise your argument, or I counter it with, there are also a lot of Zalae fans in the chat.
That's true.
And there are a lot of overlapping fans in the chat that both like Firebat and Zalae and wouldn't mind if either of these players won.
It's kind of where I'm at, honestly. I like both these guys. Honestly, I would have liked this to be a close series.
And then there's me, who doesn't like Rogue.
Nice.
And doesn't. I want to see neither of these players. No, I'm just kidding.
I thought you were gonna say, then it's me who doesn't like either of these people.
No.
I was gonna be like, wow, Jace, okay, you're making some enemies today. That's ballsy. You do you.
No, both these guys are great. I was more saying Rogue for the sake of Hearthstone Grandmasters in the specials format.
Looks like Zalae, maybe that Lure Walker Cho is affecting his turns a little bit too much. He's going to go ahead and Witchy Lackey into the Faceless Rager. People are sleeping on this card. It's good. But not
they
when
should
it's a
stay
5/1.
sleeping on this card.
Not when it's a 5/1.
No, when it's in any deck. Oh, right there, prime example. Gotta do a backstab.
Nah, man. Handlock's coming back. I'm telling you.
It's definitely not. Not with
Coming
this
back.
rogue deck existing.
No, but who knows how much longer that's going to be.
I think the most Firebat can do is just play his 3-drops or his 3/3s. Heal up some life, deal some damage. Hope to get there. He actually could potentially burn Zalae out of this game. It looks like he's setting up a Life Drink your Deckhand Eviscerate on the following turn to try and do as much damage as possible.
Mm-hmm. There's so little that you can do defensively as a rogue in this mirror, so sometimes you just need to stare down a whole bunch of damage and hope that you can kill your opponent faster than they can kill you. We can see right now with the Ziliax in hand, Zalae's just not
that's
going to
not gonna
die as
happen.
fast as Firebat is.
It was also pretty close to lethal. I believe Zalae was 4 off that turn. Actually, I'm not even sure if he could have played everything. I think he could have, because he could go
Double
like,
Kobold Lackey, Goblin Lackey, and the Eviscerate.
yeah, he would have had to backstab one of his minions after playing them just to get that extra board space.
Mm-hmm.
So
He
pretty
could've.
close to lethal. Attack of the 1 attack minions here. Well, I think
Well,
this
the
may
SI
be the.
pickup,
What were you say about the SI pickup?
at least it gets through the Ziliax without healing, but, you know, it's ignoring all of the other damage on the board and in Zalae's hand.
Hate to say it, Cora. Looks like it's the end of the bat.
The Bat put up a good showing, Jay.
That he did. That he did, but it was not enough to take on Zalae.
The Bat's not
Pretty
going down without a fight.
I'm pretty sure this is lethal, right? You've got the dagger swing. You've got that makes it 6 on board. You get 1 from the lackey. That's 7. Then you get 9, 11, 15. That's exact lethal.
Let's see if he sees it. Spoiler alert, probably gonna.
Also, life drinker as well. You know, adds some more damage to it.
Your health can be a little bit higher when you kill your opponent, because you know that differential is it's pretty important.
There was a tiebreaker, you know. If he just wants to win by more, that's the Zalae I know and love.
And that is gonna do it, folks. Zalae with the 3-0 victory over Firebat is your Esports Arena Hall of Heroes, sponsored by Progressive Champion. Rogue reigns supreme today, and I don't think it's the last time we are gonna see it reigning supreme over the other classes in Hearthstone, because right now it's the nuts. And I do think this would have gone very differently if Zalae had played against RayC in the top 4, but you know what? It's just the way the bracket worked out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this kind of sets the precedent for Grandmasters that comes up, I believe, on May 17th.
Mhm.
We're probably going to see quite a bit of rogue mirrors. But then again, you know, a lot of these players, you have to keep in mind, are a part of the Grandmaster system. Maybe they have a special warrior, special mage, special priest, even like paladin, hunter that they had built but didn't want to bring to this event as to hide it for Grandmasters. So, you know, I wouldn't just say as of yet that it's going to be rogue dominant in the Grandmasters program. But, 9 out of 12 rogues, 3 of them making the top 4. Rogue's looking pretty good.
It is really difficult to justify anything else when the main deck that is supposed to beat Rogue, which is Control Warrior, gets absolutely dumpstered by just a couple of tech cards in the Rogue deck. I mean, we saw RayC go 0-6 today against Warrior because Chef Nomi and Shadow Step are available for the Rogue deck. And sometimes the Warrior just doesn't have the removal to be able to keep up with that. So it's concerning, honestly, when the Rogue has that much flexibility to be able to blow out the only class that is supposed to be really, really good against it. And I do think, maybe there's some potential for Control Shaman if Rogue is very oppressive. But again, you have Chef Nomi and Myra's Unstable Element that go together like peanut butter and jelly. And if you don't have Hagatha's Scheme very early on, what are you supposed to do? This is very, very possibly a situation where we could be seeing Rogue at the top of the tier list for quite a while.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. I think really the only decks that can test it are decks that are specifically built to beat Rogue. And even then, like you were saying, there's a lot of value combos and value generation that can end up beating almost anything that Rogue would lose to, like the Chef Nomis, like something like Heist Baron Togwaggle and Togwaggle's Scheme. And then even on top of that, it's just so consistent of a deck that when you build a deck to try and beat it, that deck itself might be super inconsistent against the rest of the field, because you have to keep in mind, this was a 12 individual tournament, whereas Open Cups or Grandmasters is going to be so much more people playing against each other. So it's a wider field than what you would see here.
Yeah, I mean, you can maybe have a version of your deck that is specifically built to beat Rogue, but then you're sacrificing matchups against other decks that you're very likely going to run into. This was only 12 players. At the Masters event in Las Vegas, for instance, it is going to be 100 times that possibly. So it's going to be, well, not 100 times that, but it's going to be a very different situation with a much larger sample size and more players who maybe aren't super comfortable playing Rogue, who don't want to specialize in Rogue and who would rather play Mage or Priest or Shaman. So I do think that this was a very isolated incident where the players could bring absolutely anything and pilot it as the best players in Hearthstone. And in that case, Rogue is just going to be the best option. But that is going to be it for our grand finals. Zalae is your champion. We're going to go to a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to have a brief interview with our winner, Zalae.
Yes. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
shoes, and it's a difficult job, but I do what I can, you know? Somebody's got to burn those ropes.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We officially have our champion for the Esports Arena Hall of Heroes event sponsored by Progressive, and it is Zalae, and I am joined by our winner right now. What's up, man? I know that you were saying a little bit in chat yesterday and a little bit to me before we started this that you didn't prepare as well as some of the other players that you were playing against this weekend, but clearly things really worked out for you. So just walk me through a little bit of the preparation and how you landed on this lineup.
Well, I mean, the preparation was, wow, Rogue is really good. Why would I play another class? And, you know, I messaged all my friends, and maybe I did it a little bit late and they were asleep when they did it. Honestly, most of my prep work for tournaments these days has a lot to do with just the fact that I've been gaming my whole life. You know, I learned how the chess pieces moved when I was 4. I was playing tournaments until I was 18. I've always been doing some kind of game. And not all of that translates directly to what I'm doing today, but a lot of it does contribute to where, you know, because I've been alive for 32 years and doing competitive gaming for most of it, I can kind of skate by sometimes with doing a little bit less prep work and having more fun in Taiwan and still kind of show up and play okay on game day. Hello?
Oh, sorry. No, but you've set yourself up to be able to go into these situations and just, you know, act on your experience and still be able to clearly have success. So congratulations again. But you know, obviously going into the finals, you're playing against Firebat. He's your teammate. You're both on Omni Slash. And he's a guy that you spent a ton of time with, I'm sure, playing with and working with. So were you expecting it to be quite as dominant of a performance for yourself as it was? Because that 3-0 was really, really decisive.
Oh, yeah. I knew for sure I was going to 3-0 Firebat because the whole time we were in Taiwan, we hung out a lot, but every time we weren't hanging out, he was working towards preparing for this, and I was hanging out with somebody else. And the script says whoever kind of doesn't prepare quite as well, high rolls way better. You know, I explained to him I was obviously going to draw prep rating party miscreant on 3 every time, and that's what really matters. And, you know, he definitely skipped a few turns here and there, and you know, that's Hearthstone, right? It's a small sample size. Sometimes you get there, sometimes you don't.
His hand in game number 2 was not looking too hot, whereas, you know what, you definitely drew out a little bit better than he did. So it's just in the script for you, but that's okay because this is good practice for what is coming up for you guys, and ultimately that is the Hearthstone Grandmasters. So talk to me a little bit about what we've got to look forward to now, because obviously it's going to be the specialist format. You're going to be playing in the Hearthstone Grandmasters starting on I believe the 17th, I want to say, of this month. So can we expect to see more Rogue, are you thinking?
Oh, yeah, there's probably going to be a couple of Rogues in the Grandmasters tournament. There's definitely, I mean, Rogue is beatable. It's unfavored against Warrior. So if you're confident your opponent only plays Rogue, you know, maybe you show up with a Warrior list. Or if you're just a super Warrior specialist and, you know, outside of those 2 classes, you can try and get creative, but it's definitely a struggle. Maybe you know your opponent's always a Warrior guy and you show up with something like Mage and hard counter him. But even though we kind of know what classes are probably best, there's still a lot of refining to do, as we saw in this tournament. Like I won the tournament with Togwaggle main deck, which, you know, maybe that won't catch on. Other people were playing Wisps. That did pretty well, but it didn't end up winning the tournament. So there's a lot of disagreement about what's the best way to optimize these deck lists, not just the main deck, which is the most important one, but also the secondary and tertiary. So while we have some understanding of what we're doing class-wise, there's a lot of details to iron out, and that's really complicated, hard work, and it's really important, you know, winning matches in the GM League. It's everything. It's like how you qualify for Worlds, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of preparation still to be done. And obviously over the course of the 8 weeks that we've got for Grandmasters League for the first little chunk, it's going to be really interesting to see how you guys innovate in the midst of all of these matches. But are you enjoying this meta right now? I know we're about a month into it. I'm sure there's still a lot of exploration to be done, but are you having fun playing it?
I enjoy the metagame a lot more when I'm playing Rogue than when I'm not. I'll say that. It's pretty tough to play other classes, and that's a little upsetting to me, but I definitely enjoy that, you know, things are different. And playing Rogue itself, if you haven't tried it because you hate it because it's scum or whatever, I recommend trying it. Not just because you win and that's fun, but because the way the games play out is pretty difficult and intricate and tricky, and I'm into that stuff. Rogue is a fun class to play. It's legitimately fun outside of just it wins a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're going to be playing against a lot of warriors, you can tech it to be maybe a little bit more exciting, a little bit more interesting on ladder, of course. In tournament, you probably want to go for the straightforward best win rate that you can possibly have. But I mean, any shout outs that you want to give? Obviously, you are our champion, so the floor is yours.
Shout out to Team OmniSlash. I feel like we represented pretty well. We put 2 players into the tournament. We ended up finishing 1st and 2nd. So yeah, thanks OmniSlash. You guys are the best. Thanks Blizzard for the Grandmasters League. I'm pretty excited to see how that turned out. I got the streamer invite, I think they called it or whatever. So hopefully I can represent streamers well in the Grandmasters League. And thank you so much for having me. It was a smooth tournament, well run. It was a lot of fun for me to hang out with my friends, banter before the games, all that kind of stuff. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Man, you're going to kill it in GM. Congratulations again. It was really, really awesome to get to see yourself and all of the other really exciting matches and players go up against each other. So congratulations again. And thank you guys all for joining us for this iteration of the Esports Arena Hall of Heroes sponsored by Progressive. But that is going to do it for this tournament. You have successfully dethroned the king, Deathstar Zalae, and you are now wearing the crown. So we'll have to see if we do another one of these events, if you can keep that crown on your head. Oh, beautiful. Absolutely wonderful. We couldn't end this thing in a better way. So congratulations again. Make sure you guys are going to be watching the Grandmasters League as it starts on May 17th. We're going to be getting a lot more of the specialist format, and we're going to see, are we going to have more variety, or is it going to be 75% rogue? I myself am very, very excited to see what you guys and all the other GM players across the 3 regions are going to come up with. So congratulations again, Zalae. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we're going to see you next time.